Hey my watchers, welcome. Today we are gonna see. What if Harry Potter was Ice God in Rise of Guardians? Join Patreon for early access exclusive content of Super Op stories. Also contents that's too far for YouTube. You will get 400 content there, please do check that too. Please subscribe this channel, because definitely I will try my best to provide a valuable content for you all. Also check the description to support the original author for this beautiful creation. Invisible Friend, Harry Potter and Rise of the Guardians don't belong to me. Also, this is my first fanfiction, so please review and give feedback. It was a normal, cold winter day at Hogwarts. Snow was softly falling. Christmas was only a few days away and students were going home for the holidays. Though he normally hated having to change schools, Jamie found it was impossible to hate being at Hogwarts. He learned magic. Every day was new and exciting, and to his surprise and joy he was put in the same house as the famous Harry Potter, Gryffindor, where the brave dwell at heart. Life couldn't get any better than this, his life was perfect. Hey, Mudblood. Well, almost perfect. Malfoy and his goons had shown up. Goyle pushed Jamie headfirst into the snow. What's the little Mudblood reading today? Sneered Malfoy as he picked up Jamie's book. Your Muggle Book of Mysterious Times. They're out there. Didn't Bigfoot sign it? Yes, he did, Jamie said, brushing the snow off his clothes. Give it back, please, Malfoy. What do you think, boys? Should we give Jamie his precious book back? Malfoy asked Crabbe and Goyle, who just stared blankly at him. Yeah, I didn't think so. Flipping through the book, Malfoy found a piece of folded paper and opened it. Ha! Look here, boys. Jamie's drawn a picture of his imaginary friends. Jamie's heart sank. It was a picture he had drawn of him and the Guardians before leaving Burgess and was his most treasured item along with the book. Give it back, Malfoy, he cried, jumping for it before noticing a familiar person standing behind Malfoy. He smiled. Malfoy tore the picture in half. When are you going to grow up? He sneered. There's no such thing as Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, Sandman and Jack Frost. They don't exist and you're just a little worthless mudblow, he cried as a snowball hit him in the face. Who threw that? Malfoy demanded as he, Crabbe and Goyle got out their wands. Suddenly hundreds of snowballs rained down on them, but none hit Jamie, who called out loudly, thanks, Jack, and, picking up his book and luggage, walked down to the Hogwarts Express. Seeing Jamie leaving, Malfoy raised his wand at him and opened his mouth when he was suddenly frozen in frost, and swore he could hear someone laughing. To Harry, Ron and Hermione it was a strange but hilarious sight when they found Malfoy, Crabbe and Goyle completely frozen in frost with a torn picture lying beside them. Reparo! Cried Hermione and picked the now whole picture up. Who the bloody hell are they? Ron asked. They're the childhood legends of all children, Ron. Hermione answered. There's Santa Claus. He makes and delivers presents to good children all around the world on Christmas Eve, the Easter Bunny. On Easter Day he hides thousands of brightly painted colored eggs for children to find, the Tooth Fairy. She collects all the baby teeth of children from under their pillow at night and leaves a coin in return, and Sandman. He brings sweet and pleasant dreams to children each night. But I don't recognize the pale, silver-haired boy with the shepherd's crook. That's Jack Frost. Ron and Hermione turned to face Harry. He brings snow and ice wherever he goes and is the one responsible for all the snow days and snowball fights. How do you know that, Harry? Hermione questioned. Let's just say I needed someone to believe in when I met my uncles. Harry finished and walked off. His friends exchanged puzzled looks before following him, leaving the three frozen bullies to slowly thaw. It was late as Jack arrived at the North Pole. He had just shaken the snow off his hoodie when Baby Tooth fluttered around his head, chatting rapidly. I know, laughed Jack. I'm late. You definitely are, mate. Jack turned to see the other Guardians standing in the doorway. Jack, you're finally here, cried North. What took you so long? Was just helping out a friend, Jack said, smiling, taking a glass of eggnog. Merry Christmas, Jamie, he whispered. So if you could put some ideas in, I'll do my best and acknowledge you for it. Hey, sorry everyone about the wait, but now I've got the idea for a continued story, and a big shout out to XDCX and Delphinium the Oracle for their suggestions. Also, I don't own Harry Potter and Rise of the Guardians, and the story is set during The Prisoner of Azkaban. School, sighed Ron, back for more schoolwork. Isn't it great? Yes, Ron. It is good to be back, replied Hermione happily as she juggled her luggage and Crookshanks. I was being sarcastic, Ron murmured. Harry just shook his head and chuckled. But he did have to agree with Hermione it was good to be back, though he would miss the Burrow and Mrs. Weasley cooking. The trio entered the Gryffindor common room and saw Neville waving them over to the lounge where all of their friends were. As Harry walked over he hit someone. Ouch! The boy cried as he fell to the floor. Oh, I'm sorry, Harry said, bending down and helping him up. Guess I wasn't looking where I was going. The boy looked no older than 12, had brown hair, and eyes and freckles on his nose. Even though he was young, he had a wise, mature twinkle in his eyes that seemed to say he knew something you didn't. Harry was instantly reminded of Professor Dumbledore. It's okay, the boy replied calmly. I'd better go unpack. It was nice to meet you, Harry, and he walked upstairs to the boys' room. Harry joined his friends at the fireplace. So how did it feel meeting a first year that didn't swoon at your feet? Laughed Fred. Bro, he was talking to the Frost kid. Of course he didn't swoon, George said. Harry's ears perked up at Frost. What did you say? He's the Frost kid, Neville said. The rumor around the school is he's the one who froze Malfoy, Crabbe and Goyle in Frost before the term ended. Now he's constantly targeted by the Slytherins. Yeah, but he always has his mysterious protector. Anyone who attempts to hex him is either frozen or end up hanging from the ceiling. You have to admit he's kind of weird, Dean added. Nothing seems to scare him and he always looks at you like he knows something. You got that right. He's not even scared of the Dementors, Seamus said, shuddering. Cool. Miniature Dumbledore, cried Fred, and George, high-fiving Hermione, cuffed them both on the head. That's impossible. Elemental magic takes years to learn and there's no way a first year could do that. And what do you mean he looks at you like he knows something? Jamie is a muggle 11-year-old boy who started his first year of Hogwarts. He didn't even know magic until he came here and finally— Wait, what did you say? Harry interrupted, grabbing her shoulders. I said elemental magic takes years to learn and— No. The kid's name, what is it? His name is Jamie. Jamie Bennett, said Ginny, gently removing Harry's hands. Why does it matter? Harry turned away and got out a piece of folded paper in his pocket. Unfolding it, he saw the familiar drawing he had found at the end of last term and looked over many times during Christmas. The picture of the childhood legends had gained Harry's attention many times, but he was always drawn to Jack Frost and a little brunette boy in the center. They looked carefree and happy, and under the boy was a name, Jamie Bennett. Unpack, repack, learn magic, dodge hexes. That seems to be all I ever do around here, sighed Jamie, putting his robes away and also bumping into famous older wizards, aka Harry Potter. Looking around the empty room, Jamie couldn't help thinking it would be nice if I had someone to talk to who didn't think I was a freak or a pet. Jamie had tried to convince the school to let him bring Abby, his greyhound, but it was a strict school rule and they couldn't let a dog wander around with so many cats and owls, and he didn't want another pet. Finished with his unpacking, Jamie got ready for bed, but wasn't sleepy, so he sat on the windowsill and looked outside. While he loved learning magic at Hogwarts, it was nice to go home where there was no one calling him a freak, no Slytherins, particularly Malfoy, trying to hex him every day, and Sophie had grown up a lot. His mouth twitched into a smile at the thought. Resting his head back, Jamie closed his eyes and thought of the Guardians. If he thought hard enough, he could hear North's loud, booming voice, see Sandy's golden sands swirling and floating, see the tough bunny being chased by Abby in his room. Jamie chuckled at that. Hear Tooth's energetic and excited chattering about Teeth with her fairies squeaking as well, and Jack's wild, happy laugh with Baby Tooth squeaking on his shoulder. In fact, Baby Tooth's voice sounded really loud and close, like it was right in his ear. Opening his eyes, he saw a familiar, tiny figure hovering in front his face. Whoa! Cried Jamie, falling off the windowsill. Baby Tooth? How did you? What are you? Then he heard a laugh, a very familiar laugh. Jack Frost? Jamie whispered. Sorry about scaring you, said a voice outside the window. It took us a bit longer to get here than we thought, and Jack Frost flew in. Jack! Jamie cried and hugged him. Jack laughed and hugged him in return. Hello to you too. How's my little brother doing? Well, Jamie said, apart from everyone calling me the Frost Kid, since you froze Malfoy and his friends, the Slytherins trying to hex me every day, and everyone saying I have an invisible protector, I'm doing great. What are you doing here? Well, Jamie, get used to having Baby Tooth and me around, cause your invisible protector is here to stay. Jack snickered, imitating a soldier saluting. Jamie couldn't believe his ears. More chapters will be posted as soon as I can write them. Chapter 4. From last chapter. Well, Jamie, get used to having Baby Tooth and me around, cause your invisible protector is here to stay. Jack snickered, imitating a soldier saluting. Jamie couldn't believe his ears. I don't own HP and ROTG, sadly. Sad face. You're what? I'm staying around here, Jack replied, casually sitting on Jamie's bed. I don't have anything to do at the moment, and North told me I could stay here and keep you company until the end of the school year. So here I am. Baby Tooth squeaked loudly from her place on Jack's shoulder, and of course Baby Tooth wanted to come as well. Jamie mouth dropped Jack Frost. The Jack Frost, guardian of fun, was going to be staying with him for the rest of the year. It was too good to be true. You're pulling my leg. Jack smiled, of course not. Then in a second he quickly grabbed Jamie's ankle and hung him upside down in the air. But now I am. Whoa. Jack, put me down. Jamie laughed. Not till you say you believe me. Okay. I believe you. You're not pulling my leg. Jack gently dropped Jamie on the bed and they laughed. They talked while sharing Jamie's lollies. Jamie laughed when Jack ate a chili bot thai bean. I think that's how they're spelt. And it was hilarious watching Baby Tooth chase her chocolate frog around the room. At Jamie's request, Jack told him what had been happening with the other guardians, and in return Jamie told Jack about his Christmas. They were still talking when some of the other first-year boys came upstairs for bed. Jack grabbed his staff and promised Jamie he would see him tomorrow. What are you going to do, Jack? It's been centuries since I came to England, so I'm going to fly around and whiten things up a little. Saying that, Jack silently flew out the window, but also noticed how wary the other boys were of Jamie, which made him chuckle quietly. A short blonde-haired boy spoke first. Who are you talking to, Jamie? Oh, just a friend, Jamie replied. His name is Jack Frost. The boys laughed. Jack Frost? Said one of them. You've got a great imagination, Jamie. But remember that it made you a target for the Slytherins, and they went to bed. Oh, but if you knew, murmured Jamie, and thinking of tomorrow fell asleep with a happy smile on his face. When Jamie woke up, he quickly changed into his robes and left a note on his pillow telling Jack he went down to the Great Hall for breakfast. As he went downstairs and was about to leave the common room, hey Jamie, he turned around and it was Harry Potter. You are Jamie Bennett, right? Yeah, and if you're wondering, no, I didn't freeze Malfoy and his friends in Frost, and I don't know how to do elemental magic. I wasn't going to say any of that, said Harry. I was only going to return this. He handed Jamie a piece of paper. When Jamie opened it, he saw to his delight it was his drawing. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Jamie cried happily. You have no idea how much this means to me. Actually, I think I do, Harry said. Also, if Jack Frost flies around, can you introduce me? He's someone I would really like to meet. Jamie frowned. Just because everyone calls me weird doesn't mean I need your pity. Harry just smiled. I know what it feels like to have someone pity you when you don't want it. So trust me, I would never do that to someone else. Patting Jamie on the shoulder, Harry left the common room. Jamie smiled and followed after him after carefully folding the picture and tucking it into his pocket. I'll see what I can do. Breakfast was delicious as always, but Jamie kept looking around for Jack, and it didn't help that the other students were either giving him death glares or wary looks every 5 seconds. He didn't notice the guardian sitting down next to him. Sorry I'm late. I first couldn't find your note, Jack said, casually picking up a piece of toast. Oh, hi, Jack. I didn't know you could eat, whispered Jamie, puzzled. Of course I can. We don't have to, but we can. So anything exciting happen while I was gone? And why are you whispering? Apart from people saying I have a big imagination, not really much, and I'm not in the mood for people to tease me about my imaginary friend. Jack shrugged and continued eating. Breakfast passed quickly and without trouble, except for Baby Tooth nearly being eaten by the owls delivering the mail. When the bell rang for classes and everyone got up, Jack could hear people moaning and complaining, Jamie included. What do you think, Baby Tooth? Why don't we have some fun? Jack whispered to Baby Tooth. She flew around his head excitedly in response. Jack chuckled and flew after the disappearing students, leaving a trail of frost behind. Next chapter. How will a day of Jack Frost causing mischief at Hogwarts go? Read to find out. Also, finally, please review Chapter 5. I always had this fun thought of what it would be like for Jack to go wild at Hogwarts. So here it is. I don't own HP or ROTG. That first day of school was the best day Jamie ever had. In Charms, when Professor Flitwick was teaching the levitation spell to them, he suddenly found all the feathers and books flying towards him. Ah! He screamed as he fell off his stool. I'm sorry, students, he babbled, hurriedly adjusting his robes. My wand must be malfunctioning. Jamie had to cough to hide his giggles, and it didn't help that Jack was laughing his head off behind him. In Transfiguration, while the students were writing notes, their parchments went flying by gusts of wind. Their quills suddenly were whisked away by Baby Tooth, and Professor McGonagall, in her cat form, was picked up by Jack and flown around the room. Jamie laughed along with the students but whispered to Baby Tooth to get Jack to put her down gently, for she was one of his favorite teachers and had stood up for Jamie multiple times when he was bullied. Professor McGonagall changed back immediately, looking very bristled, and if she were still a cat she would be hissing. In Care of Magical Creatures, Jamie had to keep his mouth shut tightly in case he laughed. Jack followed Hagrid, imitating him, and whenever Hagrid talked, Jack would give tips and pointers how he could be more like North. As they stopped for lunch, well, we've had a man Sandy's height, Cat Lady, and North's twin so far, Jack said. So what classes do we have next? Jamie looked at his timetable. After lunch I have a flying lesson, we learn how to ride on broomsticks and they're lots of fun, and finally double potions? Oh man. And Jamie hit his head on the table. Why the sore head? Sorry. Couldn't resist that, Jack asked as Baby Tooth patted Jamie's cheek comfortingly. Professor Snape is the worst teacher ever. He's mean, never smiles, stern, and hates our house. So does that mean I can go all out? Jack said, grinning. Jamie looked at Jack with a huge grin. Yes. And then the goblins were defeated by... Harry moaned mentally. Ugh. When will this end? History of Magic was definitely not one of his favorite classes. Looking out the window, he saw the first years having their flying lesson. Remembering his first lesson, he couldn't help but chuckle. Is there something amusing you would like to share, Mr. Potter? Professor Binns barked. Harry's head snapped back up. No, sir. Well then, keep your thoughts to yourself. And continuing on, Harry rolled his eyes and went back to gazing out the window. He recognized Jamie Bennett soaring around. He was flying circles around the other students. Looks like my seeker position is under threat, he thought as Jamie flew faster and faster. Suddenly something caught his eye. Flying next to Jamie was... No, impossible. But yes, it was. A boy flying without a broomstick. Though he had silver hair, the boy looked like he was only about 15-17 years old, had pale skin, wore a dark blue hoodie and brown thatched pants, was barefoot and carried a long hooked staff. There was also something small flying around the boy's head, but he couldn't see it clearly. Then it hit him. The boy was from Jamie's picture. Jack Frost, he breathed. You are a natural at flying, Jamie. Jack whistled as they waited outside the potions classroom as the previous class came out. Thanks, whispered Jamie. You can see why it's my favorite class. Talking to yourself again, Mudblood, sneered Malfoy, approaching him. Oh great. I knew this day was going too well, Jamie sighed as he turned to face him. Listen, Malfoy, I'm having a fantastic day, and no matter how much you tease me about it, I'm never going to stop believing in the Guardians. Also, you're not that scary or fantastic as you think you are, he boldly said. Both his classmates and the other class gasped. Malfoy's face went red. Don't you know who I am? Yes, said Jamie, leaning against the wall. You're the great Draco Malfoy, a pureblood wizard and very stuck up. Me, on the other hand, I'm a muggle boy originally from Burgess who has met the Guardians and faced Pitch Black the Bogeyman, who's more scarier than you'll ever be. He raised a hand to stop Malfoy interrupting. And finally, I have a potions class to go to. So it was nice talking to you, Malfoy, and with that he turned to walk inside the classroom. Wait till my father hears about this. Filthy little mudblood, mumbled Malfoy, walking away. Jack, who was still outside, frowned. Time for him to get his desserts, and he froze the floor. Malfoy stepped on the ice, stumbled but kept his balance, until Jack gave him a push. Ah! Screamed Malfoy as he slid down the hallway. When he smashed into a door, Jack cringed. Whoops! Even after Malfoy's spectacular skid, the fun didn't stop there. The potions were frozen. Quills went around tickling everyone's noses, courtesy of Baby Tooth. Snowballs flew everywhere, and when Professor Snape tried to stop them, he was pulled into the air. With his robes blowing about, he really did look like a big, black bat. When the lesson was finally over, to say Professor Snape looked upset was a huge understatement. Which one of you cast all those spells? Which means you've definitely been looking in the restricted section. It was him, Professor, shouted a girl pointing to Jamie. He's the Frost kid, so he must have done it. Professor Snape towered over Jamie, who meekly answered, "Me?" To see for himself, Professor Snape checked Jamie's wand to see if it cast any of those spells. When he saw Jamie didn't, he checked everyone's wands, and seeing none of them had done it, he had to let them go. As they filed out and Snape closed the door, Jack made Snape slip on some ice. "Guys, I really did see Jack Frost," Harry said to Ron and Hermione at dinner, his two friends sighed. After they had finished their history of magic lesson, Harry had told them nonstop that he had seen Jack Frost flying outside, and now they were getting sick of it. "Harry," Hermione replied, with Sirius Black out there, and after the Quidditch match with the Dementors, it's only fair you're using your imagination to make you happy. But Jack Frost couldn't have been there. "But, bloody hell, Harry," cried Ron, "even if Jack Frost was real, why would he hang around here? Especially if he's one of those guardians of childhood from Jamie's picture." "He was flying with me at my flying lesson," said a voice behind him. The trio turned around and saw it was none other than Jamie. "Bennett, Jack Frost is staying at Hogwarts for a while," he added like that explained everything. "What makes you think that?" Hermione questioned kindly, not wanting to hurt his feelings. "I don't think." "I know," insisted Jamie. "He's the guardian of fun along with Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, and Sandman. I was the first kid to believe in and see him, and he's the one who froze Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle last term when they bullied me." While Ron and Hermione gave disbelieving looks, Harry was staring at Jamie with awe. Suddenly, the enchanted ceiling turned from a starry night into a snowy evening, and snow floated down on everyone. Frost covered the floors and windows, and images sprang from them. A huge bunny throwing boomerangs, a large jolly man wielding two swords, a winged woman flying around with little fairies around her, a short man flying on a cloud, and a young boy with a shepherd's crook throwing snowballs and creating snowflakes. The images moved around the Great Hall and then in one big swoop flew into each other and rained snow and snowflakes on them. When it was over, everyone was silent until Professor Dumbledore calmly remarked to Professor McGonagall, "Ah, now that's the way to cool my tea down. It was too hot before," and sipped his now cool tea. Everyone started talking again. Jamie grabbed Harry's hand. "There's someone who I want you to meet," he said happily, pulling his hand. Harry, laughing, got up and followed Jamie out of the Great Hall. He was so enthusiastic he didn't notice all the stares and whispers of Harry Potter and the Frost Kid from the other students. Jamie pulled Harry outside the Great Hall. "Was that Jack Frost?" asked Harry. Jamie opened his mouth to reply when a voice above them said, "Well, it wasn't Bigfoot, kiddo." And lifting his head, Harry saw to his awe and joy Jack Frost calmly hovering in the air with a fairy on his shoulder. Phew, that was definitely a long chapter. So Harry has finally met Jack Frost. What happens next? Please review Chapter 6. Again, I don't own Harry Potter or Rise of the Guardians. Sad face. Jamie pulled Harry outside the Great Hall. "Was that Jack Frost?" asked Harry. Jamie opened his mouth to reply when a voice above them said, "Well, it wasn't Bigfoot, kiddo." And lifting his head, Harry saw to his awe and joy Jack Frost calmly hovering in the air with a fairy on his shoulder. "Jack Frost. Harry gaped. Anyone else getting a sense of déjà vu? Jack remarked to Baby Tooth, thinking of when Jamie first saw him. Floating down, he landed beside Harry and grasped his shoulder. "Hey, snap out of it. I could fit one of Tooth's teeth canisters in your mouth." That snapped Harry out of his daze. "But this is a dream come true, and you and Sandman were the only guardians I believed in when I was a child." Jamie and Jack shared a look. "What do you mean, Harry?" asked Jamie. "Well, at the Dursleys I never got any Easter eggs from the Easter Bunny or Christmas presents at Christmas. They were all given to my cousin Dudley, and whenever my tooth fell out there would be no tooth or money under my pillow the next morning. I just stopped believing in the Guardians for a while because I always got hurt and disappointed when they wouldn't give me what they gave the other kids. Also, my uncle was quick to tell me they didn't exist. So when I read about Jack Frost and the Sandman, they seemed like the only magical beings who wouldn't disappoint me. And it was even better that my uncle didn't know that they existed." Harry smiled. "Then one day when the kids were having a snowball fight, as I cleaned the house, I saw from the window a teenage boy flying around barefoot and throwing snowballs everywhere. And during one of my uncle's work dinners, I saw golden sand floating around the guest's sleeping baby, and I knew it was the Sandman. After they were gone, I pointed it out to my aunt. She quickly beat me and locked me in the cupboard for a week for telling lies. So I never told anyone again, but I still believed in you both." Baby Tooth patted Harry's cheek and Harry, smiling, held out a hand for her to sit in. She squeaked at him and Harry looked at Jack, confused. She says she's sorry you never got gifts from the Tooth Fairy, Jack translated. She promises she'll talk to Tooth about that. Also, I'll talk to North and Bunny. I'm sure they didn't forget you on purpose. Harry still looked confused, so Jamie told him Tooth was the Tooth Fairy. Bunny was the Easter Bunny. North was Santa Claus and Sandy was Sandman. Oh right, so this is Tooth? Asked Harry, gesturing to Baby Tooth. Ah, she wishes, snorted Jack, twirling his staff around. Tooth is about my height and can talk. The reason why Baby Tooth is here is because since I saved her from being kidnapped by Pitch, unlike the other fairies, she's stuck with me ever since. She's also the only fairy that has a golden feather on her head like Tooth and is just as energetic about teeth as Tooth. Who's Pitch? He's the bogeyman, shuddered Jamie. Compared to him, the Dementors are Halloween props. Then I shall like to know about him, said another voice. The Guardian, Fairy, and two boys turned to find Professor Dumbledore standing behind them. Professor Dumbledore, said Harry, he was, don't worry, Harry. I would just like to talk to you in my office, and he started walking, gesturing for them to follow. When he saw Jamie and Harry following, he added, and that includes Mr. Frost and his fairy, please. Jack, who had been calmly flying towards the front door, stopped. He can see us? He said to Baby Tooth. Baby Tooth just shrugged and flew after the boys and Professor, knowing Jack would follow. Wait, Baby Tooth. Arg, why does she do that? Jack sighed and flew off to join them. They soon entered Professor Dumbledore's office, and he gestured for them to have a seat. Lemon drop? Professor Dumbledore offered. While Harry politely declined, Jamie and Jack happily took one and another one for Baby Tooth. Fawkes hopped over to Harry and Jamie, cooing, though he stayed away from Jack. I see a bird of fire and a immortal being of ice don't exactly mix, Dumbledore chuckled. But he has missed you, Harry. Baby Tooth was wary at first but soon flew over and soon seemed to be friends with Fawkes. Jack stayed away. Dumbledore was right, that he didn't mix well with the Phoenix. Though Fawkes wasn't literally on fire, he still radiated a fiery heat that made Jack's skin prickle. Fawkes looked at him with a curious expression and hopped over to him. When Jack scooted further back into his seat, Fawkes gave him a look that clearly said, "Oh, calm down, will you? I don't bite," and hopped onto Jack's lap. Jack cautiously laid his hand on Fawkes' back. It was hot, but a very pleasant warmth to his skin. As he started stroking Fawkes' feathers, Fawkes closed his eyes in pleasure and cooed a very soothing melody. And then again, even opposites can be the greatest of friends. Now, said Dumbledore, sitting down, I'm very curious to know why you are here, Jack Frost, and why Jamie Bennett seems to know you personally. Well, you see, sir, began Jamie, it all started when... And Jamie explained everything from his wild sled ride to when he first saw Jack and the battle between the Guardians and Pitch that his friends helped in. Jack then filled in the missing details about he became Jack Frost, who Pitch was, what his plans were, and whom the other Guardians were, and how he was here to simply hang out with Jamie since Jamie didn't have any friends. Dumbledore had said nothing and intently listened while they were talking, nodding his head occasionally. When they finished, he leaned forward. And if I might be so bold as to ask, were you all the cause of the pranks pulled today, Jack? Yes, said Jack sheepishly. Dumbledore surprised all of them by laughing. Splendid job. I have had the best day, and it was awfully nice to have a break from all the worries about Sirius Black. You also cooled my tea down very nicely, Jack. Your snowflakes gave it that lovely frosty, crisp taste. Is this guy mad? Thought Jack. But if every school had a headmaster like him, then I wouldn't mind school so much. Well, now it's bedtime, so you'd better be off to bed, Dumbledore said. Sir? Harry asked, surprised. I said you'd better be off to bed, Dumbledore replied. Now that I know that Jack Frost isn't going to attack the school, and I can't very well banish an immortal winter spirit, it's time for you two boys to go to bed. And tomorrow please refrain from picking up and flying Professor McGonagall around, Jack. She's one teacher who I don't like getting a tongue lashing from. Good night. As the boys, Spirit and Fairy, left Dumbledore's office, they quickly made their way to their common room. When they entered, Harry stopped. He mumbled, seeing his friends waiting for him at the fire. By the looks on their faces, they were not going to let him leave without an explanation. I see you have some explaining to do, so I'm going to bed. Good night, Harry. Baby Tooth and Jack, Jamie said quickly, sprinting up to his dormitory. Hey, Jamie, cried Harry. Seeing Jack and Baby Tooth head towards the window, He called out, "Don't tell me you're leaving too." "As much as I would love to see you struggle trying to explain to your friends," said Jack, leaning on his staff, "I'm heading back to the North Pole. North, Tooth, Bunny, and I have a bit of discussing to do about your unfair treatment at your uncle's. Good luck, soldier." With a farewell squeak from Baby Tooth and a salute from Jack, the duo flew out the window. Harry turned to his friends with a grimace. Hi? Meanwhile, just outside, the Dementors kept patrolled around the grounds. Their job was clear: hang around the school, find Sirius Black and capture him. But working around a huge amount of humans and not allowed to feed off their happy memories took their toll on them. Every day their self-control was weakening more and more, particularly for that boy who had such a horrible past. Then a lone figure appeared out of the dark. The Dementors swarmed over, but the man showed no fear. He was full of it, and looked like he was made from the shadows. The Dementors felt attracted to the man, and soon all of them circled him. "Ah, Dementors," whispered the man running along, pale finger down one of the Dementors' cloak. "You feed off happy memories, causing much fear to humans, and yet you're servants for these wizards. But don't worry," and he threw black sand on them, "now you work for me." As the black sand hit them, all the Dementors felt their obedience to the ministry leave them. They only had one master, and it was this man. Pitch waved his hand dismissively. "Now go. Keep patrolling the grounds until I summon you again," he said, and as they floated off he looked towards the window. He could see a faint outline of a boy at the window, and he smiled. "I'll see you soon, Jamie," he said. "Your worst nightmare will be my greatest triumph," and he disappeared into the dark once more. But if he had looked around, he would have seen a black dog watching silently. The dog looked towards the castle with a determined look and made his way to the Whomping Willow. "Ooh, Pitch is back. And you can probably guess who the dog is." Chapter 7. "But after they finish, I have 2 weeks holiday and can start writing again. So enjoy." As Harry woke up, he was surprised to see it was only 6:30 in the morning. Getting dressed, he quietly made his way down to the common room lounge area, and was happy to see Jamie there reading. "Hey Jamie," Harry said, sitting down next to him. "What are you doing up so early?" "I've always been an early riser," replied Jamie, "and after years of trying to stay up looking and waiting for the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus, you become a light sleeper very quickly." Harry sighed, running his hands through his already messy hair. "I know what you mean. When I had to sleep in the cupboard at my uncle's, I quickly became a light sleeper after my cousin Dudley started jumping on the stairs and throwing cups of cold water on me to wake me up in the mornings." Seeing Jamie's puzzled and shocked expression, he explained what life was like before he came to Hogwarts. "At least now Dudley is so scared that I'll use magic on him now. He hardly ever bothers me anymore." Both of them laughed. "Hey Jamie, when do you think Jack and Baby Tooth will be back?" "They've been gone for a few days now." "Well, Jack has his own duties, and knowing him, he's probably stopped at every snowball fight along the way before he even got to the North Pole. Don't worry, he'll be back soon, and besides, today is Sunday. Cheer up, there's no school." Harry had to smile at Jamie's cheerful disposition. At that moment, Fred and George came downstairs. Seeing Harry and Jamie, they grinned, rushed over and sat next to Jamie. Fred sat on his right and George on his left, sandwiching him in. "Well, look what we have here," Fred grinned. "George. I see, George. Miniature Dumbledore has been creating pranks and conspiring without us." "I must say I'm very hurt," Fred replied, dramatically placing his hand on his heart. "Pranks?" questioned Jamie, quirking an eyebrow. "When, might I ask, did I create pranks and conspire without you?" "Oh, like you don't know Squirt?" George cried, ruffling Jamie's hair. "Yeah, you may fool everyone else into thinking you don't know elemental magic and you're a normal first-year student," Fred said. "But you can't fool us. Tell us what's really going on." Harry and Jamie shared a look and sighed. "If only they could see Jack, then this would be so much easier," Jamie mumbled. "You can say that again," Harry mumbled back. Then again, Harry thought, having Jack invisible to the rest of Hogwarts means he can have another day of playing pranks on people. And speak of the guardian, Jack just leisurely flew into the common room and was surprised at what he saw. Jamie was wedged between 2 red-haired twins with their arms over his shoulders. He started walking over to get Jamie out when he noticed the twins' expression. They had a fun-loving, mischievous twinkle in their eyes, and if they were only wearing his clothing, had paler skin and silver hair, Jack would be looking at slightly younger versions of himself. Remember, at this time the twins are only 14, since they're 1 year older than Harry, and Jack is immortally 15-17 years old. so instead of freezing them in frost, he calmly jumped into the air and hovered above them and Jamie. When Harry saw the winter spirit, he simply grinned as he saw Jack conjure up 2 snowballs. Jamie, Fred and George. Don't look now, but Jack Frost is right above you. Of course they looked up and the twins were rewarded with a snowball in the face. Arg! The twins spluttered. Uncool Harry. But it wasn't me, Harry innocently replied. The twins turned to Jamie, but before they could say anything, Jamie was airborne. He was dangling in the air, and it looked like someone was holding him by his arms. Fred, George, Jamie said, hanging above them, I would like you meet Jack Frost, the winter spirit and the guardian of fun. Seeing that the boys still weren't convinced, Jack made 2 snowflakes and one hit each twin. Fred and George felt a cold touch on their nose, and then their vision was changed. Everything was still the same, but it was different, and it was so much clearer than before. It was like throughout their whole life they had seen everything blurry, but now it was washed away. The air itself shimmered with magic, and they felt wonder, hope, dreams, happy memories, and fun flow through them. Finally they saw the boy holding Jamie in the air, and even though they had never seen him before, not even a picture, they knew it could only be Jack Frost. They half whispered, Yep, that's my name. Jack grinned. The twins faced each other. Wicked. As the Gryffindor students came out of their dormitories and headed down for breakfast, everyone couldn't help notice the unusual group sitting near the fire. Harry Potter's presence wasn't a surprise, since many of the Gryffindors knew Harry often would sit near the fire when he was thinking. But it was the boys sitting with him that was surprising. Instead of his friends Hermione and Ron, who were often always around him, the twins Fred and George and Jamie the Frost Kid were sitting next to him. But what surprised them most of all was the look of childish wonder and happiness on all of their faces. When Hermione and Ron saw them, they stood still for a minute, not sure what to do, but Harry broke the ice and walked past them with a huge smile on his face, which they hadn't seen for a while. The twins, Jamie and Jack, followed him, and as they reached the door they saw Ron and Hermione still hadn't moved. Well, come on you two, said Harry, we better head down to breakfast. Yeah, Ronnie Ickens, laughed Fred, let's go, I'm starving. Right back at you, Fred, agreed George. Shaking their heads, Ron and Hermione followed them silently. As they were eating breakfast soon, the Gryffindors weren't the only ones who noticed the new behavior of the twins, Harry and Jamie. The students and teachers stared at them in interest, wondering how they could be so happy at a time like this with Sirius Black on the loose. What also surprised them was how Jamie now sat with the twins and Harry, and was friends with them. When a couple of Slytherins walked past and jeered at Jamie, the twins promptly stuck out their foot, tripped them over, and glared at them, throwing their arms over Jamie's shoulders protectively. Jack smiled, glad Jamie had some friends he could count on. When the owls arrived with the mail, Jamie as usual ignored it, since his mum didn't have an owl, and just ate, listening to Jack explain to Fred and George how he became a guardian, what the guardians did, who they were, what they protected, and about Man and Moon. Fred and George's eager faces were on Jack the whole time, and if they looked like awestruck idiots to the other students, they didn't care. When the last of the owls had flown away, the students started clearing out when a few of them noticed a letter floating down towards Harry by itself. Well, to everyone else it looked like the letters were flying by themselves, but to Jamie, Harry, Fred, and George, they saw it was Baby Tooth. Baby Tooth gave the letter to Harry, who thanked her. In reply, she gave a small, tired squeak and flopped onto Jack's shoulder. As Harry started to open his letter, Jamie said, I would be careful if I was you. At Harry's confusion, he continued, I've received letters from the Guardians before, and trust me when I say this. Each Guardian likes to send and present their letters in a different way. When I got one from Tooth, colorful feathers flew out. Sandy's had golden sand swirl out and form the message in front of me. Bunny's had eggs coming out of it, and only some were edible while the others exploded. It took me ages to get the colors out of my clothes. When Jack sent me one, as soon as I touched it, snow and snowballs flew out and hit me. Jack chuckled at that and high-fived Fred and George. And finally, Norths are very dramatic. But the handwriting is Tooth's. So prepare for the flying feathers. Harry slowly opened the envelope, held his breath, and nothing happened. The twins couldn't stop laughing at his face, but Jack and Baby Tooth smirked, knowing that though Tooth had written the letter, she didn't mail and send it. As Harry exhaled, that's when it started. Fireworks and flaming torches burst out, with the flaming torches swirling around in a circular pattern. Images formed from the fireworks of elves, yetis, toys, and North himself, and moved around the two boys, and loud booming magic came from inside the envelope. The music is the piece the elves play when Jack first arrives at the pole. Of course, everyone else in the great hall noticed this dramatic display, and they just stared with wide eyes and open mouths. Finally, to top it off, North's booming laugh echoed around the great hall, and it shouted, "Hope you enjoyed the show. Take that, bunny." Then it just stopped, leaving behind a normal-looking letter. At Jack's gesture and nod, Harry picked it up and began to read. Harry's letter said, "Dear Harry, Jack has told us all about you and how you repaired Jamie's drawing and became friends with him, and we just want to say thank you. Also, Jack told us about how you never received any presents, eggs and money from North, Bunny and me. We're very sorry for that, because I just looked over your childhood memories and saw that though North, Bunny and I gave you presents, eggs and money for your teeth, they were all given to your cousin, who probably won't be getting any presents, eggs or sweet dreams for the next few years, judging by the angry looks on North, Bunny and Sandy's faces when they found out. Jack will still be staying at Hogwarts for a while, so school will definitely be very interesting for you. He also does the best snowball fights, snow days and sled rides. Just ask Jamie about his crazy sled ride Jack once gave him. It made him lose his left central incisor. Finally, tell Jack that I'll personally trap him for eternity in a volcano if any one of the owls, cats or any other magical creatures eat Baby Tooth. Never stop believing. Love, Tooth, Bunny, North and Sandy." Harry smiled and read it aloud to Jamie, Jack, Fred and George quietly. They all laughed at Tooth's threat of trapping Jack in a volcano, and Harry particularly enjoyed a mental image of Dudley's expression not getting any presents and eggs. Jack then nudged Jamie's shoulder and whispered in his ear. If Jamie's smile got any bigger, it would have spilt his face. "Hey guys," he whispered to Harry and the twins. "Since there's so much snow, the first and second years often have snowball fights since they can't go to Hogsmeade. Want to join in?" Harry and the twins' grins was the only answer he needed. The twins both grabbed one of Jamie's arms and half-carried, half-marched him out of the great hall, singing loudly, "Hi-ho! Ew! A snowball fight will go," with Jack and Baby Tooth eagerly flying behind. Harry stood up to follow when a hand grabbed his arm. "Harry, what was that all about? I've never seen anything like that," cried Hermione, clutching Harry's arm so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Bloody hell, Harry! Why didn't you tell us you had a magical relative?" Ron added, a bit hurt Harry hadn't told them. "I don't." "Ouch, Hermione," replied Harry, prying Hermione's fingers from his arm. She let go sheepishly. "It's from friends of Jamie's, and believe it or not, they're the Guardians. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm off to have a snowball fight." And with that, Harry briskly walked out, leaving his friends, fellow Gryffindors and all the other occupants of the Great Hall very confused. Pitch silently appeared, careful to stay in the shadows where he wouldn't be seen. Spotting Jamie with red-haired twins, he smiled and summoned one of the Dementors nearby. "Tell the others to do it now. And remember, I want him unharmed, scared but unharmed," he ordered. Dismissing them with a wave, he looked at Jamie again, who was now playing in the snow. There will be plenty of time to play with him later, and disappeared. The Dementor mentally called for the others to come. Their master had given them an order. Now it was time to fulfill it. They all came together and started their ascent towards the boy. It couldn't get any better than this, Jamie thought, making a snow fort. "Hey Jamie, why aren't the other kids playing?" Jack asked. "They normally do, but I guess they're not in the mood today," Jamie sighed sadly. The twins and Harry groaned in agreement. Jack just smiled, made his own snowball and threw it with perfect aim. It hit one of the first years right on his head. The kid first looked at them angrily until his scowl changed into a smile, and he made a snowball and threw it at his friends. One by one, everyone joined in, and it did help that Jack would continually give free ammo and threw a lot of his own snowballs. Fred and George took over Jamie's snow fort and happily bombarded anyone they saw with snowballs. Harry ran around just throwing snowballs and helped some first-years build their own snow forts. It felt so wonderful to be a child again, and the more he had fun, the more his worries ebbed away. Seeing some kids had sleds, Jack smirked and nudged Jamie, who was ducking a snowball from the twins. "I spy with my little eye a chance for another crazy sled ride," he said. Jamie, grinning, ran and grabbed sleds for Fred, George, Harry and himself. Whistling loudly and grabbing their attention, he called out, "Want to have a sled ride?" The twins and Harry quickly grabbed their sleds and followed Jamie to the top of the hill. Lying down on them, they barely heard Jack say, "Now keep your arms and legs in at all times and have fun. Don't worry, I've got you," when they were given a huge push and sped down the hill. Ron and Hermione had just headed out to go to Hogsmeade when they saw all the snow fun the kids were having. They looked out for Harry, Ron's brothers, and Jamie, but couldn't see them anywhere. Starting to panic, Hermione hurriedly asked one of the girls if she had seen them. She didn't say anything but simply pointed behind them, smiling. When Ron and Hermione looked, they couldn't believe it. Jamie, Fred, George, and Harry were sledding down the hill, and when it looked like they were about to crash into Hagrid's hut, they suddenly turned to the right and sped towards them. Just jumping out of the way, the two bewildered friends saw the boys were sledding pacifically on a trail of ice that kept changing directions and controlling where the boys sled. The boys went faster and faster, laughing all the way. When Malfoy and a group of Slytherins walked out, Harry and the others suddenly changed direction and headed straight for them. Malfoy didn't see them until too late, and in one clean swoop all the Slytherins were knocked over. Falling in a heap, they just heard a faint cry from Jamie. "Sorry." Ron burst out laughing until he saw with horror that now the ice trail was leading the boys in a different direction. Right to the Whomping Willow. "Harry, Fred, George, stop," he shouted, but they kept sledding. When Jack saw the Whomping Willow, he thought that would be a great place to sled under and turned the boys towards it. As the boys drew closer, the tree curled its branches, ready to whack away any intruders. Jamie gulped in fright and Jack gave him a smile. "Don't worry, Jamie. I've got you," he said, and with that the boys got in the tree's hitting distance. Whack, whack, whack. Every branch came down on them, but amazingly the boys easily missed each branch and kept zooming around and around the tree. Fred and George were yelling in crazy delight, and Harry and Jamie joined in. And if they had looked closer to the entrance under the Whomping Willow, they would have seen a black dog curiously watching from the dark at the sledding in front of him. His eyes remained mostly on Harry, and a pleased and amused expression appeared. Finally they slid away from the Whomping Willow and went flying off a snow ramp, crashing into a heap of snow. Getting off, Harry and the twins excitedly talked. "Did you see that? We were like going, and then, when we knocked over Malfoy, and then the Whomping Willow kept whacking and, guys," Jack cut in, "what are those?" pointing to some dark shapes floating up the hill. He started feeling drained and weak, like all the fun and happiness was gone forever. Jack slumped to the ground, hardly able to move. "Those are Dementors. But they're not supposed to come onto the school grounds," cried Jamie. Seeing all the other students starting to get affected by the Dementors' dark presence, Jamie quickly started ushering them inside the castle. "Quick, everyone inside. They can't affect you inside. Quick, get—" "Ah!" he screamed. Two of the Dementors had grabbed Jamie's arms and were lifting him into the air. Jamie struggled, but even though he wasn't afraid of them, their presence still affected him greatly, and soon he was so weak he couldn't fight back. The teachers rushed out. "Merlin's beard! Why are the Dementors on the school grounds?" "That minister!" cried Professor McGonagall. "Professor McGonagall! The Dementors are taking Jamie!" Harry cried, pointing to Jamie. McGonagall's face went white. Professor Lupin stepped out and cast a Patronus charm, and before it reached the Dementors, a wall of black sand blocked it. They still held Jamie tightly and continued to float away towards the Forbidden Forest. Professor Dumbledore then cast his own Patronus charm, and even it didn't work. Harry ran forward but was pulled back by Hermione. Hermione let go. "Harry, if Professor Dumbledore couldn't repel the Dementors, then what chance do you have?" "I have to try," Jamie called out desperately. "Jack." Suddenly a huge wave of ice and frost struck the Dementors and destroying the black sand walls. The Dementors were flung back and they quickly retreated to the forest, letting go of Jamie. As Jamie began to fall, something seemed to catch him and flew him over to where Professor Dumbledore stood. "Wow," whispered Dean, "Jamie really does have an invisible protector after all." Dumbledore stood forward, raised his wand and muttered a spell over Jamie, who was still hovering in the air. Slowly a boy appeared who was holding Jamie. He was young but had silver hair, wore a dark blue hoodie, brown pants, had a small fairy on his shoulder and held a long wooden staff in his right hand while holding Jamie in the other. The boy slumped to the ground and Harry quickly helped him up while the fairy nervously fluttered around them. Mr. Potter, Mr. Fred Weasley, and Mr. George Weasley, please escort Mr. Jack Frost and Mr. Bennet to the hospital ward. Dumbledore said. Dumbledore whispered Jack, "It's Pitch. He's back." Looking at Baby Tooth, he urgently added, "Baby Tooth, go tell the others." Baby Tooth squeaked and quickly flew off. After Jack and Jamie had been taken to the hospital ward, Professor Dumbledore summoned all the students and professors to the Great Hall. When they had all entered, Dumbledore stood up and addressed them. "Now I'm sure you have a lot of questions about this whole incident, and I am sorry to say even I don't know the answers to all of them. But I'll try as best as I can. The boy who saved Jamie is an immortal winter spirit and is the guardian of fun along with the other guardians. I'm sure you've heard of them, the Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, Sandman, and Santa Claus. When I first met Jack, it was after that day of pranks and the ice show at dinner. Young Jamie had just introduced Jack to Harry Potter, and I met them outside the hall. After having a chat with them, I discovered that you could only see the Guardians when you believe in them, which was why only Jamie, Harry, and the Weasley twins could see him. Now I don't know why the Dementors tried to take Jamie or why the Patronus charms didn't work. But all I can say now is with the threat of Sirius Black and the Dementors out of our control, we have to be on guard more than ever before." Baby Tooth zipped into the Tooth Palace, urgently searching for her queen. Seeing she wasn't there, she hurried off to the North Pole and, with a lot of effect, activated the Guardian signal. Sandy, Tooth, and Bunny soon arrived. "Why did North call us here?" asked Tooth worriedly. The others shrugged. North soon entered. "My friends, why are you here?" "Hang on, mate," cried Bunny. "Didn't you summon us?" "Not me. I didn't see any threat." Sandy saw Baby Tooth lying on North's desk panting. Picking her up gently, he carried her to Tooth. "Baby Tooth, are you okay? Where's Jack?" Tooth cried. Baby Tooth quickly told her everything. Tooth gasped. "Guys, Pitch is back." "Well, that's my first attempt at an action scene, and as I warned at the beginning, I won't be updating any more chapters till my exams finish, which is the 13th of September. I promise I'll start writing and updating soon as I can after exams end. But until then, please review. Also, if anyone is wondering about Fred's and George's feeling of seeing Jack after the snowflakes hit them, I purely made that up because in the movie, when Jack is gathering Jamie's friends for Cupcake and the other girl, they see Jack after he hits them with snow or a snowflake. So I just thought that's how Fred and George should see Jack, and with them feeling wonder, hope, dreams, etc. I just thought anyone who believed in the Guardians would feel them really strongly, since that's what the Guardians protect. Finally, I have a couple of questions for you guys to vote on. Should all the Guardians come to Hogwarts, or should only Jack be at Hogwarts? Should Sirius have his name cleared at the end of the story, or should he remain a wanted man? Please state your answers in the box, and I'll count up the results. Chapter 8. With the tallies, it was pretty clear about Sirius, since I had no votes for no. And for just Jack at Hogwarts or all of the Guardians, I had to add a separate vote category. So the results are DADADUM. Sirius' name will be cleared. Jack will be staying at Hogwarts by himself, but the other Guardians will visit from time to time to help. Jamie slowly opened his eyes, wincing at the light. Sitting up, he saw he was in the hospital ward and 3 fuzzy figures were sitting next to him. "Jamie, you're up." Suddenly 3 people hugged him at once, and Jamie saw it was Harry and the twins. Letting go, George asked concerned, "Hey, Miniature Dumbledore, are you okay?" "Other than feeling completely terrified like Pitch is back, I'm doing great. How's Jack?" The twins and Harry exchanged looks before Fred handed Jamie some chocolate. "You better eat this first." As Jamie ate, Harry took a deep breath. "Jamie, this isn't easy to say, but Pitch is back. He somehow has all the Dementors under his control, and as they were kidnapping you, Jack saved you. But he fell unconscious upon reaching the hospital ward. He still hasn't woken up." Jamie's eyes widened and he jumped out of bed. Next to him, with the curtains drawn tightly, was another bed, and opening the curtains he found Jack lying dead still with his staff lying next to him. If it wasn't for his shallow breathing, Jamie would have thought he was dead. Jumping on the bed, Jamie grabbed Jack's shoulders and gently shook them. When Jack didn't respond, he shook them more urgently. "Jack, wake up. You have to get up." "It's no use, Jamie," Harry said sadly. "Madame Pomfrey has tried everything she knows, from waking spells to forcing chocolate down his throat." Jamie wiped away his tears. "If only one of the other Guardians were here." "Everyone into the sleigh," ordered North. "Oh no, mate," Bunny replied. "I'm using my tunnels." Your way of traveling makes me sick. See you at Hogwarts, and at that bunny created a tunnel and disappeared. The others quickly got into the sleigh, and with a crack of the reins the reindeer were off. Exiting the workshop, North got out a snow globe. Hogwarts, he whispered, and threw it. Seeing the portal open, the sleigh traveled through. Arriving at Hogwarts, they landed next to the lake, and Bunny soon appeared right next to them. Now where could Jack be? Tooth asked, flying around hurriedly, knowing that frostbite. He's probably with Jamie, Bunny answered. Sandy soon started gesturing wildly to an open window at the castle, and North saw the doors. We'll try the door, and you try the window, baby Tooth. As soon as you find Jack or Jamie, come get us straight away, Tooth ordered the fairy. Baby Tooth squeaked a yes back and flew in through the window, and to her luck it was the hospital ward. Spotting Jamie and Jack, she flew over, squeaking loudly. Baby Tooth! Jamie cried, clutching her to his chest gently. Baby Tooth smiled, but it faded as soon as she saw Jack. Like before with Jamie, she started shaking and poking, squeaking in her own way for him to wake up. It's no use, Baby Tooth, Harry said. He won't wake up. Fred then heard someone running. Guys, I think we're about to have some company. Hermione and Ron burst through the doors, panting heavily. They ran to the group, and Ron tried to say something, but it kept coming out in pants and gasps. Have you come to tell us we're right and you're wrong, Ronnie? Smirked George. While Ron glared at his brother, Hermione regained her breath and blurted out, Jamie, you've got to come to the Great Hall. A huge Russian man, Golden Man, Bird Woman, and Huge Rabbit are being attacked by everyone. Everyone started running, but at the last moment Jamie ran back, grabbed Jack's staff and got out his wand, while Baby Tooth sat on his shoulder. Wingardium Leviosa, he chanted over Jack's body. Jack slowly levitated into the air and, holding his hand, Jamie ran to the Great Hall, towing Jack along. About 5 minutes ago, meanwhile, the other guardians had entered into the castle. Hearing talking coming from behind a huge door, they entered. What they saw was surprising. Hundreds of kids were seated at the tables, and adults were seated at the higher tables. And above them, the ceiling was a clear sunny day with clouds floating by. Well, it doesn't look like frostbites here, Bunny said, looking around. So let's look somewhere else before turning to leave. A Bunny, Tooth said, tapping his shoulder. I think they can see us. Sandy nodded in agreement as all the kids and adults looked at them in shock, surprise, and even fright. If I was one of them and didn't know who they were, I would be frightened. Hogwarts do study a lot of dangerous creatures.
Impossible,
boomed North. How could the adults see us? We've never been seen by adults. Stupefy, someone cried out, and a bright light shot towards them. In a flash, Sandy conjured his whips and deflected it. As Bunny whipped out his boomerangs, he turned to North. Still think they can't see us, mate? Then the chaos started. Spells flew everything, and the Guardians were defending themselves as best as they could. But it was hard trying to avoid all attacks at once. Remember, don't hurt them, North cried, blocking another spell with his sword. Could you tell them that? Retorted Bunny. Then all of a sudden Jamie and the others burst through the doors. Holding Jack's staff, Jamie whispered, Man in Moon. I know Jack's staff only works for him, but please let me use it just this once. Then holding it above his head, he slammed it down on the ground. Ice covered the ground and spread over the Great Hall. It did the trick. Everyone stopped and stared at the boy with the fairy flying around his head and the levitating white-haired boy next to him. The Guardians smiled at Jamie, and Tooth hugged him. Jamie, it's good to see you again. How you doing, you little ankle biter? Bunny added, patting Jamie's head fondly. I'm fine, but Jack isn't. He's still unconscious. Jamie pulled Jack to the Guardians, and as they swarmed around him, Harry looked at everyone else in the hall with a sheepish shrug, while the twins happily basked in the attention they were getting. Tooth held Jack's face, studying him closely. What happened? She asked in a deadly voice. Jamie told them everything, and added an extra explanation on what the Dementors were and what they did to people. Well, it wasn't Pitch then who did this to Jack, Bunny said. At Jamie's puzzled look, North spoke up. Jack is a winter spirit but protects fun in children, and fun is often considered the same thing as happiness. His strongest power is causing fun and the happiness children have when he's doing it because his center is fun. Pitch can only know and show you your greatest fears, but these Dementors, as you call them, suck happiness out of you. For a guardian that protects fun, this is like taking away their whole being. Sandy, You're the only one who can help Jack. North then carefully laid Jack on the floor, putting his staff back in his hand as Sandy conjured up what looked like a blanket of dream sand. Gently laying it over Jack's motionless body, the sand started glowing. Jack's breathing became steadier and the staff glowed blue. When the glowing stopped, Jack didn't make any movement. No one else dared move. Bunny turned away and said, "It didn't work, we've lost him, all you do care." Bunny's eyes widened as Jack shakily got up and clutched his staff. Crossing his arms and his expression turning sour, Bunny whacked Jack with his ear and growled, "Oh, rack off, you bloody show pony." But his small smile showed how glad he was that Jack was well. As Jack was fussed over by everyone else, Jack saw the other students and teachers who were still staring in shock at what just happened. Swinging his staff over his shoulder, Jack strolled up to the professor's table and, setting his stick upright, perched on the top of it. "Dumbledore, these are my friends, the other guardians. I'm sure you'll want to have a talk with them, so shall we go to your office?" Dumbledore nodded in agreement and, telling McGonagall to get the students off to their lessons, walked towards his office with the guardians following. Before Jamie left for his classes, Jack stopped and mentioned for Babytooth to stay with him. "Keep an eye on Jamie, Babytooth. He's probably going to get quite a bit of attention now." And saluting to Jamie, he flew after the others. Sirius followed the Dementors as they floated deeper into the forest. When they stopped, a man appeared out of the shadows. Sirius crawled through the grass till he was close enough to listen, but far enough so they couldn't detect him, he hoped. Through the man speaking, Sirius caught words like guardians, boy, Jamie, fear, fun, and when the man stopped speaking, Sirius stealthily turned to go back. Running back through the forest, he nearly reached Hogwarts when black sand sprung up and blocked him. It then wrapped around his body and held him tight. As Sirius struggled and even turned back into a human, the bonds wouldn't even loosen. "Don't bother. You can never escape from fear," said the man approaching him. "But what a strange past you have. You fear no one will ever believe you're innocent, that no one will know that you weren't the real killer. You also fear that your godson will never get to know you and will hate you because of what he's heard. Isn't that right, Sirius Black?" Sirius could only whimper as Pitch's words played in his mind, bringing horrible images and memories. Then it went black. Pitch looked at the unconscious man at his feet, smiling. "You could be of some use to me. Until then, please review." Chapter 9. Hey all. So sorry about the wait. I didn't mean to take so long to update, and particularly when I ended on a big moment with the Guardians at Hogwarts and Sirius captured by Pitch. But thank you for sticking with my story. And, as usual, I own nothing. As the Guardians made their way to Dumbledore's office, Jack couldn't help but worry about Jamie. Should I have let him go to class? Maybe I should have brought him with us instead. His thoughts fled when they reached the Griffin guarding Dumbledore's office. "Sherbet Lemon," Dumbledore said clearly. "Is he mad?" Bunny whispered. The Griffin moved, revealing a set of staircases. In the office, Dumbledore flicked his wand twice and the door shut and chairs appeared. Gesturing for them to sit, North, Bunny and Sandy accepted while Tooth kept floating in the air, and Jack sat on top of his staff. "Now, Jack has told me all about you and how you defeated this Pitch Black last time," Dumbledore said, sitting down in his own chair. Resting his chin on his hands, he continued, "But I would like to know how he was able to make Dementors, who are completely loyal to the Ministry of Magic, turn against us." The Guardians looked at each other. "One word, Headmaster," said North. "Pitch, is this the Pitch Black Jack told me about the other night?" "Yes. It seems he has put the Dementors under his control using his black sand. With it, he can control fear and create nightmares," replied Tooth. Dumbledore nodded and leaned forward. "Now this man looks like he's threatening my school. So how do we defeat him?" By the end of the day, after all his classes, Jamie hurried to the library, found a corner surrounded by books, and hid there. Today had officially taken the cake for being one of the worst days of his life. First, the Dementors tried to kidnap him. Then he had found out Pitch was back, and for the rest of the day everyone had tried to either question him endlessly or avoid him like he was Professor Snape. Though Babytooth tried to keep him from being swamped, she spent most of her time avoiding being grabbed by the students. Eventually, after another student had nearly grabbed her for the 20th time, she flew into Jamie's pocket and stayed there. Opening his satchel, Jamie got out some parchment, ink, and a quill and started on his homework while Babytooth came out of his pocket and sat on his shoulder watching. "Young man, Jamie jumped and sent Baby Tooth flying. Looking up he saw it was the librarian Madam Prince. "What are you doing in the library with wet ink and not sitting at a table?" "Please, Madam Prince, I need to hide. The other students aren't giving me any peace. Please let me stay. I won't spill any ink, I promise." Madam Prince pursed her lips as the very thought of letting a student use ink around her books was worse than death. But she sighed and nodded. "I'm keeping an eye on you. Don't let any of the ink touch my books." Jamie went back to work until he completed all his homework for the day and, checking his watch, he saw it was dinner time. Sighing, he packed his now completed homework, quill and ink away. Walking out of the library, he made his way to the great hall with Baby Tooth flying close to his shoulder, ready to dive into his pocket again if she needed to. Arriving at the entrance, Jamie took a deep breath and faced Baby Tooth. "We'll be okay. If we sit with Harry and the twins, at least no one will try to grab you again or question me too much. But I guess now, instead of Frost Kid, I'm going to be called Kidnapped by Dementors and Saved by the Winter Spirit Kid. Oh, why does life hate me?" About to walk in, Jamie felt a hand on his shoulder harshly turn him around. Seeing it was Malfoy, Crabbe and Goyle, Jamie groaned. Yep, life definitely hated him. "So you little mudblood. Your imaginary friends are real, and that pale boy was the reason I was frozen in frost and humiliated by your little sledding trip. If you thought life was bad before, now it's going to be worse." Malfoy leaned in with a nasty sneer. "Much worse. You know, big guy, I'm really getting sick of you," said a familiar voice behind them. Malfoy slowly turned around to see Jack Frost behind him with the other Guardians and Professor Dumbledore. Jack stalked forward, forcing Malfoy, Crabbe and Goyle to move backwards away from Jamie. He quickly stepped next to Tooth, who put her arm around him protectively. "You may think Jamie is just a stupid mudblood, but you don't know him like we do. Jamie helped stop our most feared enemy, Pitch Black, because he didn't lose belief in us. Also, he brought Sandman back from the dead because his belief in the Guardians was unbreakable, and Jamie was my first believer and let me be seen by other children for the first time in 300 years. Jack paused, allowing this to sink into the bullies' already terrified minds. "Finally, I consider Jamie to be my little brother, so bully him again and I will freeze you again. And before you run off to your daddy, just remember that I'm an immortal winter spirit, so good luck with that." Malfoy and his goons ran off quickly into the hall. As the Guardians, Dumbledore and Jamie entered the Great Hall, students stopped eating and, as they did earlier, just stared. Jamie quickly sat with Harry and the twins, who slapped him on the back warmly and waved at the Guardians. When the Guardians had sat at the head table, Dumbledore walked to the podium and raised his hands for silence. "Now today has been a very exciting and interesting day for all of us, and the arrival of the Guardians has made it even more so. But as I said before, with this new enemy Pitch Black and the Dementors, we're in more danger than before, and the Guardians have offered to help. Which is why at this moment Jack Frost is staying at Hogwarts." At this the hall erupted into whispers and Dumbledore tried to get quiet again, but it wasn't working. So North stood forward and took a deep breath. It worked. Silence fell upon the hall again and Dumbledore continued. "Thank you, Santa Claus. Now where was I? Oh yes. Jack Frost will be staying at Hogwarts for the time being, and I believe his fairy companion Baby Tooth will be staying as well. The other Guardians won't be staying, for their duties take up their time, which they can't afford to give us." At this North took the podium, "But we promise we will be here immediately as soon as Pitch Black shows his face here again. Also, since Christmas is over and I don't need my helpers as much, I'm sending some of them to help protect your school." At this North took out a snow globe, whispered something. Throwing it to the ground instead of breaking it made a swirling vortex, and out of it came half a dozen giant, hairy creatures that grumbled and mumbled gibberish. North gestured them into a line. "These are my Yetis. They are fierce when they need to be and are great guards. They've stopped many people from finding and entering my workshop." At this he looked at Jack, especially one winter spirit. Jack simply laughed and waved at one of the Yetis. "Hey Phil." North then told the Yetis to patrol the borders of the school, and the Yetis left, still grumbling. Dumbledore then thanked the Guardians once again before addressing the students. "Now I think it's time you went off to bed. So good night all, and teachers, you may leave as well." As the teachers and students made their way out of the hall, Jamie, Harry, the twins, Ron and Hermione approached the Guardians and Dumbledore. Tearfully Jamie hugged them goodbye. "Why can't you guys stay?" Tooth answered. "Jamie, Sandy and I have work that's done every night and we can't abandon it, as much as we want to. I can't either, mate, cause Easter's coming up, said Bunny, and I've still got millions of eggs to finish. Though I'm not sure why Red and Jolly over here isn't staying. For your information, Bunny, though Christmas is over, I still have lots of toys to make for this year's Christmas, and I can't leave the elves unsupervised for long, retorted North. Also, I have one more thing to give you, Professor Dumbledore. North pulled out 4 snow globes and handed one to Dumbledore, Jack, Jamie, and Harry. These will summon us if you need us. Just tell the globe where you want to go and lightly shake it. Then throw it on the ground and it will become a portal there. But keep them safe, they only work once. At this, North took out another snow globe and created a portal back to his shop. As he went through, Sandy and Tooth followed him. Not before Tooth gave Jack and Jamie one last hug and called out to Harry and the twins. Thank you for being Jamie's friend and defending him. Then she flew through the portal. Bunny tapped his foot twice and created a tunnel. With a nod at them and a smirk at Jack, he called out, "See you later, Frostbite. And make sure you protect the school." Then he disappeared down the hole and it sealed behind him. At that, the twins and Golden Trio headed for bed, leaving Jamie behind, as he wanted to talk a bit more with Jack. As Jack was discussing with Dumbledore a separate room for him and the Yetis to stay in, preferably down in the dungeons where it was colder, the sound of hurried footsteps appeared and Jack quickly pushed Jamie behind him and took up a defensive stance. He saw it was a short wizard in a bowler hat surrounded by 3 other wizards who all had their wands out and pointing at him. Cornelius, why, might I ask, is the Minister of Magic doing here at such a late hour? Dumbledore inquired slyly, tucking his snow globe out of sight into his robe. Jamie did the same and Jack quickly slid it into his hoodie pocket. I'm here, Albus, because there's news that there was an attack on the school and the Dementors have gone rogue. Cornelius replied stiffly. Well, you can put your wands away, and the reason that your Dementors have attacked Hogwarts is because they're under the control of the bogeyman Pitchblack, Jack said, twirling his staff over his shoulder. And you are? The minister asked with a very pompous air. My name is Jack Frost. So the Guardians have left and the minister has arrived. Wonder how he'll react to the news. We'll try to get another chapter up as soon as I can, but I do have quite a bit of holiday homework I need to do. Thanks for sticking with my story again, and please review Chapter 10. Thanks for the reviews. I would have got this chapter up sooner, but I was staying for a few days at my mum's and stepdad's new country home, and there's no Wi-Fi there. Also, someone put a good question in the reviews asking how Cornelius could see Jack, because he doesn't seem like someone who would believe in the Guardians. In case anyone else was wondering, here's the answer. At the end of Chapter 6, when Jack saved Jamie from the Dementors, since he was still invisible to the majority of the school, Dumbledore put a spell over him which allowed Jack and the other Guardians to be seen by non-believers as well as believers. Hope that answers that. As usual, I own nothing. Otherwise, many of the characters that died in Harry Potter wouldn't have died. Previously, I'm here, Albus, because there's news that there was an attack on the school and the Dementors have gone rogue. Cornelius replied stiffly. Well, you can put your wands away, and the reason that your Dementors have attacked Hogwarts is because they're under the control of the bogeyman Pitchblack, Jack said, twirling his staff over his shoulder. And you are? My name is Jack Frost. Jack Frost? As in the mythical winter spirit? That's preposterous. Well, if mythical is your term for real and obviously right in front of your eyes, then yes, I'm mythical. The minster's eyes bulged and he spluttered in shock. His companions mirrored his reaction. Flicking his wand, Dumbledore summoned chairs for the ministry wizards, which they quickly sat in. Summoning a chair for himself and Jack as well, Dumbledore suggested Jamie should go to bed. While Jamie started to protest, Jack knelt down and spoke to Jamie quietly. Jamie, I think you should go to bed. But
No vas jamie.
I don't want you to gain too much attention from these ministry wizards, and you've had a very long day. I'll be fine. I've got the Yetis and Baby Tooth to keep me company. Jamie sighed and grudgingly headed up to bed. Now, Minister, Dumbledore said, I could go on for hours telling you everything that has happened, but I'll just be brief and give you the important parts. There are the Guardians of Childhood, which I'm sure you've heard about in stories when you were young, and their greatest enemy, the bogeyman Pitchblack, has escaped. Since Pitchblack controls fear, he was easily able to place the Dementors under his control, and now he's after Mr. Bennet and the Guardians for revenge. Mr. Bennet is involved because he was the one who stopped Pitch Black from ultimately succeeding in his plans to create a world of just darkness and fear. Earlier today, the Dementors tried to kidnap Jamie when Jack stopped them. The other Guardians soon appeared and explained the situation to me. So until the Dementors are back under your control again or Pitch Black is stopped, Jack Frost is staying to help protect the school, and also half a dozen of Santa Claus Yetis are staying as well. Cornelius was still staring in disbelief, so Dumbledore added with a sigh, "The reason you're able to see him, Minister, is because I performed a spell which lets the Guardians be seen, even by non-believers." The Minister looked at Jack with a yearning, hungry expression that Jack knew all too well. It was the same expression Pitch had when he had tried to convince Jack to join him, and it brought back bad memories. Cornelius then leaned forward and said to Dumbledore, "I can see this is all true. It shows there is so much our community doesn't know about the world and the power we could gain, particularly with an all-powerful, immortal winter spirit." That last sentence Cornelius said more to himself. Gesturing to his companions, they got up and moved forward with their wands out. For the first time since meeting him, Jack had never seen Dumbledore's eyes flash so angrily. As Dumbledore stood up and got out his wand, Cornelius spoke again. "Step aside, Albus. This is ministry business." As the wizards moved forward towards Jack, the Guardian of Fun lazily cocked an eyebrow and in one swing, promptly froze the 3 ministry wizards up to their neck in frost. Jack then perched on the top of the chair, enjoying the shriek of terror the minister made. Dumbledore calmly sat down again and turned to Jack. "Jack, would you kindly release them?" Jack waved his staff over the frozen wizards and the frost turned into snowflakes. As the wizards hurriedly backed away from the winter spirit, Dumbledore turned to the minister again. "Now, Minister, I'm sure we can talk this out peacefully now?" The great Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge, only whimpered in response. Meanwhile, Jamie had made his way to the Gryffindor common room. Seeing an armchair close to the fire was vacant, Jamie sank into it. As the warm, soothing heat of the fire washed over him, he muttered to himself, "Glad this day is over." Closing his eyes, he started to drift off to sleep when he felt someone tugging on his sleeve. Opening his eyes, he saw it was one of his classmates who he shared a desk with in potions. "Hi," she shyly said. "You're Lauren, right? Lauren Robson?" Lauren blushed in response. "Yes. I was wondering, if it wasn't too much trouble, could you tell the story of how you met Jack Frost and why you're friends with the Guardians?" Now it was Jamie's turn to blush. No one had ever asked him to tell the story of how he met the Guardians. Everyone would just make up rumors and tell what they thought had happened. But if one of his classmates was interested, why pass up the opportunity? It might be able to set some of the rumors straight. "Okay, if you're interested," Jamie replied. Lauren grinned and ran to the staircases. "Hey everyone, Jamie's gonna tell the story." At this, all the Gryffindors came running out into the common room, even the older years. They all settled as best they could behind the armchair, and Fred and George turned the armchair around so Jamie was facing them. Seeing all the genuinely interested faces, Jamie, for the first time since coming to Hogwarts, felt the feelings of being an outcast and freak slowly fade away. "Okay," Jamie began. "It all started about 2 years ago, just before Easter." While Jamie was telling his wondrous story of his adventure up in the Gryffindor common room, Jack was bored out of his mind. Even Baby Tooth, who was used to listening to adult conversations between Tooth and North, was struggling to keep awake. After the fiasco with the frozen wizards, the minister had taken another approach and for the last half hour had been trying to convince Jack to work for the ministry. And he had the nerve to talk to Dumbledore like he owned Jack, and Jack wasn't a person, but a valuable object. "If you worked for the ministry, the magical community could learn so much from you, and think of all the possibilities we could achieve with your magic. No wizard has ever been able to fully master elemental magic, particularly snow and frost. Also, your other companions would be of service. Though this Tooth Fairy, the other fairies, the Easter Bunny, and the Yetis would have to be classified." Jack sat up at this, sending Baby Tooth flying into the air. "What did you say? Your other companions would be of service?" "No, you said you would have to classify the Yetis, fairies, Bunny, and Tooth," Jack said, standing up. "Why would that be?" His voice was dangerously soft. Cornelius, obvious to the Guardian's angry tone, said dismissively, "We would have to classify them because they're not human." "No." "What do you mean, no?" Minister, Jack started walking towards him, that my friends are not something you can classify and study. All of us guardians used to be humans before we were chosen by man and moon to become guardians, and just because they aren't 100% human doesn't mean they're stupid or don't have feelings and thoughts like we do. Also, the Yetis are under North's protection and the fairies are under Tooth's, so you can't study them. They're thinking, feeling beings too, right, Baby Tooth? Baby Tooth squeaked in agreement, looking angrily at the minister. Jack continued, finally, your ministry doesn't need to know everything about the Guardians as we aren't part of your magical community, and we work more for the Muggle children than your children, as not many of your children believe in us as Muggles do. Also, if the magical world knows everything about us and can see us, you won't truly believe. Cornelius' face all through this had become redder with each word and quickly interrupted. Now wait a minute. If we know all about you and can see you, then we will believe in you. Jack frowned. That's not true belief. True belief isn't about seeing then believing, it's about believing then seeing. Our believers can't see us until they believe in us first. At this, Jack loudly yawned. I'm gonna hit the sack now, so Professor Dumbledore, where is my room again? Down near the dungeons, as you said you enjoy colder climates. Dumbledore replied, I'll have one of the ghosts show you. Peeves. A ghost suddenly appeared in the hall. What stood out were his very cheeky grin and the way his eyes glinted with unspeakable mischief. Jack, this is Peeves, our main prankster until you came here. He's wanted to meet you for a while. Peeves, please show Jack Frost to his room with the Yetis. Peeves cackled and flew towards the door, gesturing for Jack to follow. As Jack flew out the door with Baby Tooth closely behind you, could hear catches of the conversation between Jack and Peeves. Unsurprisingly, it was all about pranks and tricks. When they were out of sight, Cornelius walked to Dumbledore's side, his ever-present wizard guards right behind him. Albus, you can't honestly have that spirit stay here. You heard what he said, the Yetis, the Guardians, and himself won't work for us, so how can we trust them? They know more about Pitch Black than we do, and Jack saved one of my students' lives. Dumbledore calmly replied, so I think I can trust him. You can't employ something to protect Hogwarts and be around the children that we don't know everything about. Cornelius shouted. Dumbledore, as calm as ever, stood up and faced the minister at eye level. Jack Frost isn't a something, he's a someone, Dumbledore calmly but firmly stated. And if I recall correctly, we don't know everything about the Dementors, and yet didn't the Ministry employ them to protect Hogwarts? Now look what has happened. Cornelius couldn't find an answer and just kept opening and closing his mouth like a codfish. Dumbledore started walking to the great hall doors. Now if you don't mind, Minister, I have some business to attend to, so I'm sure you can show yourself and your companions out. Good night, gentlemen. After the headmaster had left, Cornelius stood in shock until one of the other wizards nudged him. Snapping out of his stupor, the now humiliated minister left in a huff with the wizards right behind him. Just thought Jamie should get the chance to tell the actual story himself to his house, and I couldn't resist having Jack freeze the ministry wizards. Now Cornelius Fudge knows to never mess with a guardian. Reviews are greatly appreciated, and see you next time. Chapter 11. Remember, I own nothing. Enjoy. In a small clearing in the dark forest, Pitch Black stood silently, just out of reach from the moonlight. To a stranger's eye it would look like Pitch was another tree by how still he was. As Pitch closed his eyes, he smiled, thinking of what was to come. Oh, how he had come so close before. If only that Jack Frost and Jamie hadn't ruined his plans, he would have been all-powerful by now. The Guardians thought they had defeated him when his nightmares dragged him down into his lair. Pitch grimaced, remembering how the nightmares plagued him with his own fears. Eventually, as time passed, he started slowly gaining his strength back, until that day when he escaped. When the nightmares paused for that single moment, Pitch leapt out of his lair and sealed it behind him. But if he ever returned there, Pitch shuddered at the thought. Once he was free, he soon regained all his power and his need for revenge returned. First, going back to Burgess, he was surprised to discover Jamie wasn't there anymore. But it wasn't too hard finding out he had moved to England. Discovering the magical school of Hogwarts had been a surprise, and the discovery of the Dementors had been a wonderful surprise. He was disappointed to find out the infamous mass murder Sirius Black was an innocent man wrongly accused and seeking redemption. But, at this, Pitch grinned eerily. He did create the most powerful nightmares. And with his new army of stronger nightmares and Dementors, no force would be able to defeat them. Not even the wizards and witches could stop them with their useless anti-Dementor spells. The Guardians might have won the battle, but he would win the war. Hearing the screams of his guest, Pitch opened his eyes. It was time for a visit to see how he was getting on, and to inspect the new nightmares. Betrayal, loss, grief. They never went away as it kept replaying in a vicious cycle in Sirius' mind. Every second he could hear James and Lily screaming, the Ministry courtroom angrily accusing him, the horrible rounds of the Dementors sucking out his happy memories. Though Sirius would decrease the effect of the Dementors by turning into his dog form in Azkaban, he couldn't now. He was too weak, and every time he tried, the black sand binding him would tighten around his throat until he passed out from no air. Even in sleep there was no rest as nightmares plagued his mind of James and Lily dying, his time in Azkaban, and the heartbreaking betrayal by the hands of someone he once called friend. When he woke up screaming, the whole process would start again. As the hours passed, Sirius grew more exhausted and drained. Now he could only barely remember what a smile was and had forgotten completely the sound of happy laughter. But what terrified Sirius the most was every time he woke from a nightmare, more of the man's nightmare horses were created. Suddenly, out of the shadows, the man appeared. Sirius stilled. The man walked over to him and ran a pale, slender finger down his cheek. It brought no comfort, only intensified his fear. The man, seeing Sirius' face, chuckled and stepped back. He started inspecting the new nightmares, which had just been created, and seemed very pleased. "Ah, what beautiful, perfect nightmares," Sirius coughed, bringing the man's attention back to him. "I'm sure you're very curious and confused on what's going on, Sirius Black. I know you're not human, and you were the one who tried to kidnap that little boy." Sirius coughed, his throat sore from his screaming. "How true, where are my manners? I'm Pitch Black, the bogeyman, and you're right, I'm not human. How observant of you. But I really shouldn't be surprised, you humans have a way of only seeing the obvious." Sirius smiled grimly, "But you failed. The boy was saved, and now Hogwarts will be under greater protection than ever before. You won't be able to touch him." Instead of being angry, Pitch Black surprised him by laughing. It sent shivers down his spine, and the Dementors and nightmares drew nearer, attracted to the heightened fear. "That's where you're wrong, Sirius Black. The kidnap attempt on Jamie was only the lure I needed to get my intended future guests here. I'm sure you've heard of them? The Guardians of Childhood." Pitch practically spat the last sentence, and Sirius wondered in amazement. Was it possible? Do they really exist? "Oh yes, they do exist," Pitch said, snapping Sirius out of his thoughts. "But magical children in your community already have so much magic in their lives that not many of them believe in the Guardians, which I'm extremely happy about. These Guardians protect wonder, dreams, memories, hope and fun in children by bringing joy to them. I used to be the one everyone believed in. I used to have all the power before they came along. Now, thanks to them, I'm always shoved under the bed." Pitch spun around, slamming his hand into a nearby tree. His hand left a gaping hole. Even the Dementors and nightmares cowered away from him. After a minute, Pitch composed himself and faced Sirius again. "But soon I'll have my revenge, and the world will finally be rid of them. All the pieces of my plan are falling into place, and by the time the Guardians figure out what is going on, it will be too late." "What plan?" Pitch faced Sirius, smiling like Sirius was a naughty child with his hand caught in the cookie jar. Now, you'll just have to wait and see. Don't worry, you play a big part in it, and so does your godson Harry." Sirius struggled vainly against his bonds. "Don't. Leave him alone. Please," came out as a plea then a command. Pitch merely picked up a long package on the ground and ripped off the paper. Sirius, seeing it, stiffened. Examining the now unwrapped object inside carefully, Pitch held it up to Sirius' face. "But your godson is essential for my plan. And besides," he paused as black sand slithered off his arms onto the object. It stayed there for a moment, then disappeared into it. "You've bought such a nice present for Harry. It would be a shame to waste it. Just thought I would give Pitch his own chapter, as we haven't seen him for a bit, though it's only short chapter. I also wanted to have a bit on what Sirius was going through as Pitch's prisoner. Please review." Chapter 12. Expecto Patronum. Harry shouted. From his wand a strong silver burst appeared and started to form a shape. But as the shape started to become clear, it vanished. Harry slumped to the ground breathless. "Well done, Harry," Professor Lupin said smiling. "Your Patronus is improving greatly. It's not taking an exact form though. I need to practice more," Harry argued, raising his wand. Professor Lupin laid his hand on Harry's arm and lowered it. "I think you've practiced enough. This is the 20th time you tried and you need a break." Wanting to argue, Harry stopped at the firm look on his teacher's face and sat down on the stairs. Professor Lupin joined him. "It looks like Jack has settled in quite well now." Harry snorted. He fitted in before even when people couldn't see him. Now he's simply enjoying all the attention and the first and second years love playing with him. It was true. Now that everyone could see Jack, he couldn't pull off as many pranks as before, but still could do quite a lot. He had also gained a fast friendship with Peeves, which frankly wasn't surprising. It was terrifying. Now no student in Hogwarts was safe from this prankster duo, and not a single day passed without students squealing in fright, annoyance, or shock. Even some of the staff ended up on the receiving end. Filch was the most popular. The Yetis also had become a normal sight around Hogwarts, as they would regularly patrol around the grounds and were a more pleasant sight than the Dementors. At first everyone avoided them and many of the younger students were scared. But when one of the first years tripped and fell down some stairs, one of the Yetis picked her up. Setting her gently down, the girl had frozen in fear until the Yeti gave her a warm, gentle hug. From then on, the Yetis weren't feared anymore, and many students loved going down to the dungeons now for their potions lessons, as there was a high chance the Yetis or Jack would be there. Only Malfoy complained, lamenting over and over again how the Yetis and Jack had no place down there. He didn't say it in earshot of Jack though. Jamie, since telling his story to the Gryffindors, had become less teased by his fellow students, and the story of his adventure with the Guardians spread like wildfire. Even the Slytherins had stopped, but not Malfoy. He only did it when Jack or the Yetis weren't around. It became the most popular topic after Sirius Black. It was nice to see Jamie smiling more, and, thanks to the twins, he laughed more too. The sound of running snapped Harry out of his thoughts. A few minutes ago, Jamie had just finished his classes for the day and was making his way to Professor Lupin's office. The last few days at Hogwarts had been interesting to say the least, but enjoyable. Whispers still surrounded Jamie, but instead of them being about how much of a freak he was and possibly how powerful, they were about the friendship he shared with the fantastical and magical guardians. More of the students now wanted to be Jamie's friend, but Jamie sat with Harry and the others. But Lauren Robson always volunteered to be his partner in class and started sitting with Jamie as well, making her his first friend from his year. When Jamie heard about the Patronus lessons Harry was taking with Professor Lupin, he quickly asked if he could join, since he was now their new target. While Professor Lupin was unsure, Jamie argued he needed to learn to better protect himself, even if it wouldn't work. It could give him an advantage. Jack supported the decision. Jamie hadn't improved as rapidly as Harry, but he was able to produce a fine silver mist, which Professor Lupin said was better than any other first-year student could do. Reaching the classroom, he entered in quietly in case Harry was practicing. Finding the duo sitting on the stairs, Jamie couldn't help but quip, "I'm sorry, this must be the wrong room. I was looking for the fierce fighter Harry Potter." You're hilarious." Professor Lupin stood up. "Harry is just taking a rest. But Jamie, let's see how you try. Wand ready please, and remember your happiest memory." Jamie raised his wand and concentrated. Finding the memory, he smiled and took a deep breath. Expecto Patronum. After the lesson, Harry and Jamie were completely exhausted. Jamie had gone from producing a fine silver mist to a slighter, thicker silver mist. This didn't exactly raise his hopes. Heading down to dinner, they sat with the others and dug into their food with gusto. Hermione watched with disgust, and Lauren joined them shortly. Seeing Jamie inhaling his food, she smirked. "Well, Jamie, if I didn't know any better, I would say you're not hungry." Jamie paused to look at her and rolled his eyes. "Wev excuse me, but I vas learning and advanced spoil ust afore our nd it's Tywing." Lauren snorted. "Can I quote you on that, Professor? I don't speak mouth full." Jamie frowned and opened his mouth again when a cold breeze swept through the great hall. Looking to the doors, a group first years covered in snow ran in laughing. Even the Slytherin kids were happily talking with the other houses. Jack swooped in with a girl on his back. Flying over to the Ravenclaw table, he put the child down and dramatically bowed to her, saying, "My lady." The girl giggled and sat down. Jack then flew over to the head table, passing the Gryffindor table. To Jamie he simply smiled and high-fived Fred and George as he passed. When he reached the table he promptly sat in his chair next to Hagrid and began eating. "He hasn't found anything." The group turned to Jamie. "Why do you say that?" asked Hermione. "Because he didn't high-five me," Jamie said calmly, eating. "When Jack hasn't found anything he just smiles, but if he's found something he gives me a high-five. This is so none of the other students are worried. This is probably the only time I've ever dreaded receiving a high-five." As Harry finished eating, a familiar hoot caught his attention. Hedwig was flying down carrying a long package. The shape looked very broomstick-like. Hedwig dropped it into Harry's lap and tiredly perched herself on his shoulder. Harry offered her some meat from dinner that she gratefully ate before nipping Harry affectionately on the ear and flying back to the Ollery. With shaking fingers Harry tore off the paper and gasped. It was a broomstick. "Bloody hell, Harry. That's a firebolt," Ron said with complete awe in his voice. As Ron didn't say this too quietly, the surrounding students heard him and gathered around Harry. Oliver Wood excitedly gushed. "This is great, Harry. Now you have a broom for the match against Ravenclaw in a week." Harry, Ron and Jamie then, after 15 minutes, managed to find their way of the dining hall with Harry still clutching the precious broomstick. As the boys were excitedly gushing over the firebolt, Hermione and Jack arrived with Professor McGonagall. "Mr. Potter," Professor McGonagall said, "while I am happy you've received a firebolt, I have to ask you to give it to me." The boys' eyes widened in shock and disbelief. Ron argued back, "But why, Professor?" Miss Granger and Jack Frost raised an important factor that since this firebolt didn't come with a note and you don't know who sent it, it's for your safety we have to strip it down for hexes and curses. "But Professor." "No buts, Mr. Potter. Please hand over the firebolt." Harry reluctantly let go of the firebolt and handed it to Professor McGonagall. Taking the broomstick she walked away, but before she disappeared from sight she added, "Once we've finished stripping it your broom will be returned." Once Professor McGonagall was out of sight Harry angrily turned to Jack and Hermione. "What did you do that for? I thought we were friends. And being friends means looking out for you, which I was doing," shouted Hermione. "That was a firebolt, the fastest broom in the world, and you ratted it out to Professor McGonagall," yelled Ron. "Well, Jack and I came to the same agreement. What if Sirius Black had sent you it?" Harry and Ron didn't look shocked or surprised. They were still mad about the broomstick. Jamie stepped between them and tried to calm both parties down. "Look, I can see we're both upset and I'm upset too. That firebolt looks amazing. But Harry, Ron, you need to trust your friends who have your best interests at heart," Jamie said pleadingly. Jack put his hand on Harry's shoulder. "Jamie's right, Harry. Trust your friends and I have your best interests at heart too." His speech didn't work though. Harry stormed off in a huff, muttering under his breath, "How does Jack know what's best for me? He's never been around when I needed it." "You're right." Harry's head whipped up and looked around. Seeing it was no one he turned to Ron. "You coming, Ron?" Ron nodded and glaring at Hermione and Jack one last time followed Harry, leaving Hermione, Jamie and Jack alone. Hermione sniffed, trying to hold back tears, and Jamie hugged her. She smiled in thanks. "I'm gonna go to bed. I've lost my appetite for dinner," and she walked off towards the common room. Jack looked at Jamie. "No wonder you saved our lives, kiddo. That speech was something a guardian would say." Jamie smiled. "North told me since I had such strong trust in you guys my center must be trust. I think I'll go back in for dessert. Lauren promised me she would save some. I'm gonna go for a fly. Besides, Baby Tooth will be wondering where I am. I left her with Hagrid, as you saw yesterday. She bumped her wing badly," said Jack. Then he smirked. "Have a lovely time with your girlfriend." Jamie's blush was deeper than North's coat. "She's just a friend. And say hello to Baby Tooth for me." "I will," and to the girlfriend comment. Sure. But have fun." At that Jack swiftly flew out the window. Jamie rolled his eyes and headed back into the hall where, sure enough, Lauren had saved for him a huge serving of dessert. Sitting down, Jamie dug in and tucked the argument between Harry, Ron and Hermione away for later. For now he'd enjoy his friend's company and not worry. But if Jamie had known that when Harry had touched the firebolt something black slithered onto his hands, he would have been. The next few days passed normally except for the argument between Harry, Ron and Hermione. The boys still hadn't forgiven Hermione for the firebolt being taken away. Though Jamie did his best to keep the peace, Harry and Ron didn't listen, leaving Lorne to comment how stubborn boys are. Also, Harry had been ignoring Jack as well as he had taken Hermione's side with the firebolt and told Professor McGonagall too. This was strange to the others as Ron only held the grudge against Hermione but not Jack. Harry, on the other hand, not only ignored Jack but whenever Jack even tried to talk to him, he would give him the cold shoulder and walk off. The only people he would talk to would be Ron and Jamie, but if Jamie started talking about Jack or the other Guardians he would change the topic immediately. One weekend Harry saw the others heading down to Hogsmeade. Sighing in frustration he headed down. He sat in front of the fireplace where Jamie was reading a book. Jamie didn't look up from his book. "Something on your mind, Harry? If it wasn't for my wretched uncle and aunt I could be going to Hogsmeade with the other third years. But instead I'm stuck here." "Well, I'm stuck here too," Jamie said, closing his book. "So do you want to play a game of wizard chess? Lauren is hanging out with her other friends. I'm not really in the mood for chess." "Well, unless you'd like to mope all day long you'll want to find something to do. I mean, it's not like you can go invisible." Harry's head snapped up and he smiled. "But I can." And running up to his room he came down with an old-looking cloak and a piece of parchment. Grabbing Jamie's hand and pulling him off the couch he said, "Grab something warm to wear and we'll both go down to Hogsmeade." Jamie did as he was told but shook his head. "That's it. Harry's gone mad." Harry pulled Jamie out of the common room and down a corridor. When they reached a statue of an old witch Harry pulled Jamie to face him. "I'm going to share a secret with you, Jamie, and you can't tell anyone else. Do you promise?" Jamie frowned. "Is this a dangerous secret?" "No. Hermione and Ron know about it," Harry replied, pulling out the cloak. "This is an invisibility cloak which belonged to my father. We can use this to sneak out." "Wow, but why are we here?" Pulling out his wand Harry tapped the statue and it slid aside to reveal a passageway. Jamie's mouth dropped. "How did you do that?" Harry snickered at Jamie's expression and pulled out the parchment. Tapping his wand he said clearly, "I solemnly swear I'm up to no good," and images appeared on it. Opening it up Jamie could see it was a map of Hogwarts and everyone who was in it. He could see Dumbledore in his office and Lauren in the courtyard with some of the other first years. "This is amazing, Harry. How did you get this?" "The twins gave this to me, but I don't know who wrote this map. They call themselves Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. Anyway, on this map it shows this tunnel takes us out of Hogwarts to Hogsmeade under Honeydukes." Jamie grinned. "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go." And he ran into the tunnel. Harry chuckled and went to go follow after him but paused. "Should I tell Jack that we're going? He'll be worried if Jamie's not in Hogwarts." "Why should you tell him? Has Jack ever been fully truthful with you?" "Well, not always, and I don't care for him. But he really cares for Jamie. But Jamie's with you so he'll be safe, and who cares what Jack thinks? He's never around when you need him. Remember when you wished he was at the Dursleys?" Harry frowned at this and followed Jamie into the tunnel, the statue sliding back to cover the entrance. They finally reached Hogsmeade and found themselves in Honeydukes. They saw Ron looking for sweets as he was browsing. He was also muttering to himself, "Oh, I wonder if Harry would like these? Blood lollipops? Nah, that's too gross. What about this? Cockroach clusters? Definitely not." Ron yelped and jumped in the air. "Harry, what the bloody hell was that for? Just keep your voice down. Jamie and I are under here." "Hey, Ron," Jamie whispered. "Isn't this cool?" Ron laughed and with his invisible friends they toured the shop. As Harry and Jamie found sweets they wanted they told Ron and he'd pick them out for them. When Ron had to pay for them Harry and Jamie secretly passed the money to him. The cashier was surprised by the amount of sweets. "Are you stocking up for the year?" she asked. "What? Ooh, no. My friends couldn't come today so I'm buying some sweets for them." The cashier then smiled very big. "Well, aren't you a sweet boy? Your friends are lucky to have you." Ron blushed and quickly paid for the sweets. He was still blushing as the trio left the shop, and it didn't help Jamie and Harry didn't stop snickering about it. Ron took them to the 3 broomsticks and bought 2 large butterbeers, one for himself and the other for Harry and Jamie to share. As they were drinking, Jamie asked where Hermione was. "Oh, her," Ron said, taking a sip. "She's at the bookshop. Been there all afternoon." Jamie wanted to ask more when the door opened and the Minister of Magic, Professor McGonagall, Hagrid and Madame Rosmerta sat down at a table. The table was right next to theirs, and listening closely they could hear the discussion. I'm not adding in the conversation they had. I'm too lazy to look it up. As the conversation continued, Harry's face grew darker and angrier until he pushed back the chair and stormed out the door, pulling Jamie along behind him, and Ron quickly followed. As the boys made their way to the carriage back to Hogwarts, Ron looked at Harry. "Are you okay, mate?" Harry turned to look out the window. "Just don't ask about it," he snapped. Ron and Jamie were silent the rest of the trip back to Hogwarts, and when they arrived, Harry immediately went to the common room. From that day on, Harry grew even more bad-tempered and snappish till no one tried to even talk to him. Also, whenever there was a new article on Sirius Black, or if the topic came up in conversations, Harry would immediately clench his hands in anger, and you could hear him mutter under his breath, "It's all his fault. It's all his fault." When the Quidditch game was a couple of days away, Harry was sitting in front of the fire brooding. He hadn't got his firebolt back yet, and he was stuck without a broomstick for the game against Ravenclaw. "Mr. Potter." Harry turned around to see it was Professor McGonagall with Jack and Baby Tooth, and she was holding the firebolt. She approached him and handed back the broomstick, which Harry held like gold. "The broomstick's been checked, and there's no hexes or curses in it. Good luck in the game tomorrow." Then she left. Everyone else crowded around Harry, and Jack clapped him on the shoulder. "It's a great broomstick, Harry. I'm sure you'll fly circles around Ravenclaw at the game." Harry smiled, but on the inside he was irritated. "Says the one who tired to take something good from me in the first place." "You're right. He did try to take something good from you." As Harry went to take the firebolt up, Ron took it for him, cradling it like it was china. Harry walked to Hermione, who was doing her homework. "Can I sit?" She looked at him hard, then nodded. Harry sat down, and Jamie joined him with Baby Tooth sitting on his shoulder smiling. It was great to see them as friends again. Jack sat down in a nearby chair and leaned back, closing his eyes. He was so tired from patrolling all day. Now there was some peace and quiet. Jack shot up and defensively pointed his staff at the stairs to the boys' room when Ron ran down furiously. He walked right up to Hermione and yelled, "Now your cat has done it, Hermione. He's eaten Scabbers. Ron Crookshanks hasn't been in your room." "Oh yeah," Ron shouted. "Then explain this." And he tossed a few ginger cat hairs on top of her homework. "That could have been any cat. No, it was Crookshanks, and now thanks to you Scabbers is dead." Ron stormed up to the boys' room while Hermione stiffly gathered her homework and went to the girls' room. Jack gestured for Baby Tooth. "Go and stay with her. I think now Hermione will need some companionship." Baby Tooth nodded, squeaking a reply before zooming up the girls' staircase. On the day of the Quidditch game, Harry eagerly grabbed his broomstick and went down with Ron and Jamie to the Great Hall for breakfast. While they were eating, the twins, Lauren and Hermione, joined them, but Hermione sat away from them and had Baby Tooth on her shoulder. After they finished eating and the post was arriving, Jack, from the head table, noticed one of Tooth's fairies flying towards him carrying a slip of paper in her hand. "Hey, hello there. What is Tooth giving me?" Jack said, taking the paper from her. The fairy squeaked a hello and took a drink of water from his cup. "Jack, get to the Tooth Palace now. I found something you have to see. It's about Sirius Black." "Tooth." Jack immediately grabbed his staff, picked up the fairy, and flew over to Professor Dumbledore. "Professor, I have to go see Tooth urgently. But I'll be back soon, and if Pitch appears, call me straight away." Dumbledore nodded, and Jack flew over to where Jamie and the others were sitting. "Hey guys, I have to go see Tooth about something. But I'll be back soon, and you know how to summon us if something comes up. Good luck with the game, and Baby Tooth, stay here with him." And at that, Jack promptly flew out the window towards the Tooth Palace. "Come on everyone," called Fred. "We have a game to win." George added, "In your dreams, Gryffindor." One of the Ravenclaw players shouted, and the school rushed out to the playing field to start the game. As the game went on, Jamie excitedly watched with the others and laughed at the commentator's commentary. He sounded like he was just advertising the firebolt instead of commentating the game. Harry was flying circles around the Ravenclaw players on his firebolt, but according to Ron he wasn't going at his top speed, and Jamie suspected it was because of the very pretty Ravenclaw seeker. Harry spotted the snitch and dove for it, but to his horror, he saw dark figures on the field. Dementors! The whole school got out their wands looking for Pitch when Harry pulled out his wand and shouted, "Expecto Patronum!" It was only a silver mist, but it knocked over the Dementors and Harry caught the snitch. Gryffindor won. Jamie's fear at seeing the Dementors turned to laughter as he saw the Dementors were Malfoy and his friends dressed in dark robes. Professor McGonagall was blowing a gasket at them. With the others he rushed out onto the field and they lifted Harry up on their shoulders cheering loudly. As Harry was carried up to the castle and they made their way to the common room for a celebratory party, he felt if someone asked him at that moment to perform a Patronus, his would be the most powerful. Jack arrived at the Tooth Palace with the fairy leading him. Seeing Tooth, he hugged her quickly. "Hey Tooth, I got your message. What's up?" Tooth beckoned for him to follow her as she flew to one of the towers. When Professor Dumbledore mentioned Sirius Black, his name struck my memory, and I looked through my teeth canisters to find him. "He reminds me of you a bit, Jack. He was a terrific prankster back in his school days." Jack smiled but halted when he saw Tooth retrieve a canister from the tower. It was Sirius Black's. "Go on," Tooth said. "Touch it. I thought we could only view our own memories." Tooth shook her head. "That's if you want to see them for yourself. Since I'm the guardian of memories, when I'm touching it, I can let others see another person's memories. So go on, Jack, you need to see this." Jack touched the canister with Tooth, and as it opened, memories flooded his brain. It felt like forever the memories played in his head, but when they stopped, Jack stepped back in disbelief. Tooth looked at Jack grimly, and she held out the canister to him. Jack put it in his pocket. "This changes everything. If you're wondering about Lauren Robson, I thought Jamie should have a friend from his year, so I created her for that role. So I guess that makes her my first OC. Yippee! Oh, and I know Harry is supposed to get the firebolt at Christmas, as it says in the book, but I had to twist the plot around if I wanted to continue the story, as the first chapter is set just before Christmas holidays. Also, I had just Ron meet Harry and Jamie at Hogsmeade, as I wanted them to not have made up with Hermione yet. So all you major Harry Potter fans, I'm very sorry, but this was the only way I could fit in the firebolt and carry on the plotline for the story. Please, please, please review. I would really appreciate your comments." Chapter 13. Gryffindor was still ecstatic about the win from the Quidditch match over Ravenclaw. Now they only had to beat Slytherin in a match and the cup would be theirs. Of course, this made the Slytherins become more nasty and bitter to them. Hermione had made up with Harry and they were talking again, but Ron was still ignoring her for the whole Crookshanks incident. Hearing how badly Hagrid's case for Buckbeak went, the Golden Trio and Jamie threw themselves into gathering information and notes for an appeal telling Hagrid not to give up hope. But they couldn't do much as they had their exams, which were taking up most of their time. Jack also hadn't returned yet, which worried Jamie greatly, though Harry seemed almost happy Jack wasn't around. Finally, it came the glorious day when their exams were finished and the students could go into a state of relaxation again. One morning, Harry and the others sat at the table eating breakfast while waiting for the post to arrive. As Fred and George were telling jokes, the owls swooped into the hall. One owl dropped a folded knot into Harry's lap addressed to him, Hermione, Ron and Jamie. Gesturing them over, he unfolded it. The handwriting was very messy and smudged by big drops of water, which looked like tears, but the message was still clear. Appeal lost. Buckbeak is going to be executed this afternoon. Thank you for all your help, but don't come down. Hagrid, they can't do that, snarled Ron. I spent so much time studying and gaining information for his appeal. Hermione rolled her eyes. Well, I'm going down to see Hagrid, Harry said. Anyone else coming? Jamie? Ron and Hermione nodded gravely, and Harry quickly put the note back in his pocket. The day passed slowly until when classes were finished they changed out of their robes and uniform. As they exited the courtyard with Baby Tooth, they came across Malfoy and his friends watching from the top of the hill. Oh no, groaned Jamie. Malfoy heard them. Come to see the show? You, shouted Hermione, you foul and evil little cockroach, pointing her wand at his neck. Hermione no, cried Ron. He's not worth it. Hermione slowly lowered her wand to swiftly slug Malfoy in the jaw. Malfoy quickly ran back to the castle with his friends behind him. Hermione shook her hand to get rid of the sting before turning to Harry. Harry, you better win the Quidditch Cup, because I can't stand it if Slytherin wins. Hermione, Ron said quietly. That was brilliant. Hermione smiled but started sobbing, throwing herself into Ron's arms and clutching her arms around his neck. Ron stood there unsure what to do, but then hugged her back. I'm sorry about Scabbers, Hermione sobbed. It's okay. Ron grinned. He was getting old anyway. It's great to see you as friends again. But if we're gonna see Hagrid, we better get a move on, said Jamie. When the group arrived, Hagrid seemed upset to see they had come, but his watery eyes said he was glad they came. As Hagrid made them a pot of tea and they sat down, Harry looked at Buckbeak from the window. He was in the middle of the pumpkin patch, tied up with his head bent gloomily. Hagrid, can't we just set him free?
No, Harry.
Dumbledore will get in trouble. He's coming too. Gonna be here when it happens. Great man Dumbledore. Oh, and Ron, I have something for you. Hagrid pulled a box out of his cupboard and pulled a familiar-looking rat out of it. Scabbers, Ron cried joyfully, taking Scabbers. You're alive. Keep a better eye on your pets, Ron. Ron nodded and turned to Hermione. Guess I owe Crookshanks an apology. Before Hermione replied, one of the jugs on the table broke. Blimey! Hagrid exclaimed. What was that? Hermione saw it was a black stone shaped like a snail shell when another hit Harry's neck. Ow! Baby Tooth started squeaking earnestly and Jamie poked his head out the window. Guys, Professor Dumbledore, the Minister of Magic, and a man with an axe are heading this way. Quick, head out the back door. Hagrid whispered urgently. None of you can be seen here, especially you, Harry. An impatient knock sounded at the door. Be there in a minute. As Ron, Hermione, and Jamie made their way out, Harry paused. Hagrid, it'll be all right. Hagrid nodded. Go. And Jamie pulled Harry out the door, the foursome quickly behind the huge pumpkins as Hagrid let the men in. Snap! Hermione turned around to look at the forest, staring intently. What is it? Harry asked. I thought I saw. Hermione replied. Never mind. Ron started running up the hill. Come on, let's go. The others followed with Harry, looking at Buckbeak one last time. When they reached the top of the hill, they could see the executioner raising his axe above his head. As it came down, the crunch echoed loudly. Hermione hugged Ron again, sobbing, while Jamie hugged Harry. They weren't expecting what happened next. Ow! Ron cried, holding up a bleeding finger. Scabbers bit me. And he chased after his pet rat. Scabbers, come back. When Ron finally caught him, he didn't notice he was too close to the whipping willow. Ron! Shouted Harry. Get away from the willow. Ron started running, but it was too late. One of the willow's branches whipped around and hit him. Ron went flying until he hit one of the walls of Hogwarts. Hard. After a sickeningly crunch, Ron fell to the ground. Ron! Shouted Jamie as they ran to him. Ron didn't move. Come on! Harry shouted. We have to get Ron to the hospital ward. As Hermione pulled out her wand, she spotted Scabbers about to run away again. Oh no, you don't. Petrificus totalis. The rat froze, allowing Hermione to pick him up and put him in her pocket. Wingardium Leviosa. Ron's body began to gently float in the air, and the others quickly rushed him to the hospital. Madame Pomfrey, cried Harry. We have an emergency. Madame Pomfrey rushed out of her office, took one look at Ron, and immediately took over, setting him on a bed and casting spells over him. In a few minutes, all of Ron's bruises and injuries were gone, but he still wasn't waking up. I'm afraid he's in a coma. I'll see if I have anything in my office. As Madame Pomfrey left, Harry and the others sat around Ron. A cold breeze swept into the window and Jack arrived. Jack! Shouted Jamie, slamming into him for a hug, with Baby Tooth resuming her usual place on Jack's shoulder. Jack hugged Jamie back before gonna see Ron. I saw him get hit by the willow as I was flying back, and I couldn't fly any faster. I'm sorry. You hear that? Another excuse. Just like all the other guardians have been making all your life. Damn right you're sorry. Harry shouted. If you're meant to help protect us, why weren't you back, huh? What was so bloody important that you had to leave Hogwarts when Sirius Black is out there? Yes. He should have been here protecting Hogwarts. Hermione stepped in front of Harry. Harry, calm down. I know you're upset about Ron, I am too, but blaming Jack isn't going to help. We had no control over what happened. Buckbeak shouldn't have had to die. He was innocent and now Ron's in a coma, whispered Jamie. If only we could change the past. Though normally tampering with time is forbidden, said Professor Dumbledore entering the hospital, there are times when it is essential. The minister is on his way to receive treatment for spraining his ankle. He decided it would be fine for him to take a shortcut through Hagrid's garden and got his leg caught in those trap vines Hagrid uses for security. You have until then to get back to the hospital before he arrives. I will lock the doors behind you. Remember the rules, Miss Granger, you mustn't be seen, and I suggest you leave Scabbers behind with Ron. Walking out the door, Dumbledore began to close them before adding, oh, and in times like these I find retracing my steps most helpful. Then the doors shut and locked. Ah. Did anyone get what he was talking about? Jamie asked. I'm kinda lost here. Hermione pulled the frozen Scabbers out of her pocket and placed him in Ron's pocket. We'll be back soon, Ron. Just hold on, she whispered. Okay guys, huddle around me. The boys did, and she pulled from around her neck a necklace with a golden hourglass. Looping the chain over their necks, Jack turned to Baby Tooth on his shoulder. Baby Tooth, stay with Ron and watch over him. If the spell wears off, Scabbers shut him up fully in Ron's pocket. Baby Tooth nodded and flew to Ron, giving a kiss on the cheek to all of them. Hermione turned the hourglass 3 times and all around them everything blurred and they could see faint outlines of people moving backwards. When it stopped, Hermione tucked the necklace back under her hoodie. The others looked around at the now empty hospital ward. What just happened? And where's Ron? Harry asked worriedly. It's 3:15. Where were we at 3:15? Hermione asked. I'm going to Hagrid's. Hermione pulled on Harry's hand. Come on, and we mustn't be seen. The 4 ran out to the grounds but hid behind a wall. To Harry and Jamie's shock, they saw themselves, Ron and Hermione, approaching Malfoy. What the? Harry started loudly before Hermione pushed him back against the wall, showing her necklace to all of them. This, guys, is a time turner. Professor McGonagall gave it to me first term. It's how I've been getting to all my classes. So we're back in time? Said Jamie. Yes. Dumbledore knew we could save Ron and Buckbeak from their fates. The 4 watched as Hermione slugged Malfoy. Great punch, Jack complimented. Hermione smiled. Thanks. Seeing Malfoy and his friends heading towards them, Harry, Hermione and Jamie jumped out the window and Jack flew up to the ceiling. As Malfoy, Crabbe and Goyle passed, they could hear Malfoy muttering, Gonna get that little mudblood. Wait till my father hears about this. Rolling their eyes, the group quickly followed the past selves down to Hagrid's hut, taking refuge behind the giant pumpkins. Jamie moved to get Buckbeak when Hermione pulled him back. We must let Professor Dumbledore and the Minster see him first before releasing him. Otherwise they'll think Hagrid set him free. Seeing Ron get Scabbers back, Harry frowned. Hermione, couldn't we just run in there and grab Scabbers now so Ron doesn't get hurt? No, cried Hermione loudly. Lowering her voice, she continued, No, Harry. If you saw yourself run in, what would you do? Probably think I was mad or it was someone impersonating me. Hermione nodded. Horrible things happen to wizards who mess with time, Harry. We mustn't be seen. Hey guys, Jack whispered, people are coming down now. They saw it was Dumbledore, the Minster, and the Executioner. They're coming and we're not leaving. Hermione pondered. Why aren't we leaving? Spotting a familiar black rock in the shape of a snail shell, she took 2 and passed one to Jack. You've got excellent aim, Jack. Throw it through the window and aim for the jar. Jack nodded and threw it. True enough, it hit and broke the jar right on impact. Hermione threw the second one, which hit Harry's neck. Ow! Harry cried, rubbing his neck. That hurt. Sorry. As the past selves came out of the hut, Harry and the others ran into the forest, hiding behind the trees. Peeking through the low-hanging branches, Hermione observed her past self. Is that really what my hair looks like from the back? She said, not noticing the snap of the twig she stepped on. Get back, whispered Jack as the past Hermione turned around. Hermione hid behind the tree again. They could hear the past Harry asking, what is it? And past Hermione replying, I thought I saw, never mind. Hearing the past, Ron saying, let's go, and the 3 running up the hill. Hermione pushed Harry forward. Now go and get Buckbeak. Be quick. Harry approached Buckbeak, bowing. When Buckbeak bowed back, Harry quickly untied the chain and pulled at Buckbeak to get up. "Okay, Buckbeak. Come on. You need to get up." Unfortunately, Buckbeak didn't want to move and protested loudly. Hermione ran up with the line of dead ferrets around her neck, tossing one to him. "Come on, Buckbeak. Come and get the nice dead ferret." As Buckbeak moved forward for more ferrets, Jack and Jamie helped pull on the chain with Harry, and they managed to get the hippogriff into the forest just as the minister, executioner, Dumbledore, and Hagrid came out. "Where did the beast go?" exclaimed the minster. "Must Ave freed himself." "Good boy, Bucky," sobbed Hagrid in relief. Buckbeak, hearing Hagrid's voice, tried going to Hagrid, and it took all of the boy's strength pulling on the chain and another dead ferret to keep him still. "We must search the grounds at once," cried the minister in a huff. "Search the skies if you must, but I would like a cup of tea or a brandy," Dumbledore said, going back to Hagrid's hut. "Executioner, I believe your services are no longer needed." In anger of not having the hippogriff to kill, the executioner raised his axe and brought it down on the fence. The loud crunch made Hermione gasp. "That's what we heard earlier. Not Buckbeak." Taking Buckbeak to a nearby clearing, they tied him to a tree with the dead ferrets next to him. "He'll be fine here until we can come back for him," said Harry. "Now we just have to stop Ron from getting hit by the willow." As they ran up the hill, Scabbers had just bit Ron and run away. Jack promptly sent a blast of frost at the rat, which froze him. As Ron picked him up happily, he was still close to the whipping willow. "Ron!" shouted the past Harry. "Get away from the willow." As the branch came down and hit him, it only hit his arm. Ron groaned in pain as his arm was broken. Past Hermione got out her wand and performed the body lock spell on Scabbers, putting him in Ron's pocket. Petrificus Totalis. Now he won't be able to run away again. But why is he covered in frost? Ron shrugged, holding his arm. "I don't know, but I'm glad it was, otherwise I'd be too close to the willow and—" He shuddered. Past Harry called to the others. "We better get you to Madame Pomfrey for your arm." The past selves made their way to the hospital while Harry sighed in relief. His friend was okay. Jamie pulled him out of his thoughts. "We better get to the hospital before the minister arrives with his sprained ankle." The group ran, or flew, to the hospital ward and arrived to see Dumbledore exiting. "Professor, we did it." "Ron's okay," Harry cried. Dumbledore smiled. "Well done. Now get inside before I lock the doors." As Harry and the others entered, they saw Ron sitting up in bed with a cast on his arm and Baby Tooth on his shoulder. The past selves of Harry, Hermione, Jamie and Jack just disappearing. "How you'd get over there? First you were there, now you're there." Jack smirked. "It's a long story." Sitting around Ron, they had just settled when the minister burst in, groaning loudly, being supported by Hagrid. Madame Pomfrey quickly came out of her office and set the minister on a bed, muttering about how much fuss he was making for a simple sprained ankle. Spotting them, Hagrid came over, beaming. "Did you hear? Buckbeak escaped. He's free." Harry and the others smiled at each other. "That's great, Hagrid. We're glad he escaped. What happened to the minister?" "Oh, he tried to take a shortcut through my garden and didn't listen when I told him not to. One of the security plants, the trap vines, tripped him over and he sprained his ankle. Well, I better get back to my hut. Have a lot of work to do," and he left whistling happily. Madame Pomfrey came over. "You five can leave now. Just be careful of your arm, Mr. Weasley, and if it hurts, come back." The five left and headed down to the courtyard, telling the story of what happened to Ron on the way. "Ron," Hermione asked, "if we stopped you from going into a coma from the willow, why did our past selves go back?" "Oh, Dumbledore told you guys that an innocent life should be spared, as you never know when it would help. Then you pulled out a weird necklace and put it over Jack, Jamie, and Harry, then disappeared. You said I should stay behind since my arm was still hurting badly, and Jack had Baby Tooth stay behind with me." As they entered the courtyard, Jack seemed to remember something and turned to Harry. "Oh, Harry, I have something to tell you. This is why I had left Hogwarts." Just as Jack reached into his hoodie pocket, suddenly dozens of nightmares and dementors swarmed from the Forbidden Forest towards Hogwarts. The Yetis that had been patrolling the school started ushering everyone into the Great Hall with the teachers. Some of them tried to cast their Patronus, but like before, the Patronus was blocked by a shield of black sand. As the students, teachers, and even the minister ran into the Great Hall, Jack quickly swooped up any first years lagging behind. "Professor Dumbledore, Harry, Jamie, we need to use the snow globes." Taking his out, he whispered the Warren and tossed it on the ground. Harry and the others followed suit with Dumbledore saying North Pole. Harry saying Sandy's Island? I looked up on ROTG Wiki, and apparently Sandy lives on an island somewhere. And Jamie saying Tooth Palace. The portals opened and the other guardians stepped out. Jack boomed North, what's the trouble? Long story short, Pitch is attacking. There's dozens of nightmares and dementors out there. The Yetis have started fighting, but they need help. North nodded, Professor Dumbledore. Stay with the kids and keep everyone in here until we come and tell you it's safe. Don't come out whatever you do. As the guardians left the hall, Jack gave Jamie a hug. Don't worry, Jamie, I'll be all right. Just come back. Okay. Jamie replied. Professor Lupin hurried over. Here, Jack, he said, handing over a bunch of chocolate. Try to keep some in your mouth and give to the other guardians. It won't stop them completely, but it should decrease their effect on you. Thank Professor. Man, chocolate being helpful? Tooth's going to have a fit. With that, Jack flew throughout the door and it shut. Outside, Jack sealed it with frost so not even a nightmare could slip through any of the gaps. Time to kick butt, he muttered, joining his fellow guardians. Baby Tooth squeaked in agreement. As the students huddled together inside the hall, the sounds of the continuing fight kept going on and on. No one dared speak. Just as the sounds died down, crash! 2 nightmares flew through the window and entered the hall. Everyone shrieked and dove for cover, but the nightmares paid no attention to them darting between the panicking people. Before anyone could cast a spell, one of them swooped up Jamie and the other swooped up Harry, holding them by their collars with their teeth. As the nightmares, with their captives in tow, ran back towards the broken windows, the teachers cast spell after spell at them to no avail till the nightmares jumped through the air, out the window and out of sight. Hermione blasted open the doors and she, Ron, Ginny, Neville and the twins ran out of the hall, ignoring the minister's cries to come back. They found the guardians fighting with the Yetis. Many of the nightmares had been destroyed, and it was the Dementors they were still having trouble with. The Dementors suddenly stopped fighting and headed back towards the Forbidden Forest. Jack saw Hermione and the others and frowned. What are you guys doing out here? We told you to stay in the hall. But Jack, Neville cried. 2 of those black sand horses came in and took Harry and Jamie. Look, in the distance they saw the nightmares carrying off Harry and Jamie into the forest. Jack's grip tightened on his staff in anger and he flew after them. You guys stay here. We'll handle this and we'll get them back, Bunny ordered before he and the other guardians rushed after Jack. Ginny looked at her brothers. They'll save Harry and Jamie, won't they? Fred and George hugged her tightly. They will, they have to. The guardians entered the forest following the nightmares. When they came to a clearing where Jamie and Harry were bound in black sand, they rushed forward when suddenly black sand caught them and the Dementors formed a close ring around them. Instantly they felt the effect as their happiness was drained and grew weak. Not even the chocolate they had in their mouths could help with this many Dementors so close to them. Too weak to move, Tooth whispered urgently to Baby Tooth. Go get help, quickly. The fairy squeaked unhappily but obeyed her queen, zooming back to Hogwarts. As Jamie struggled to get free, a familiar but spine-chilling laugh that haunted his dreams echoed around the clearing. Out of the shadows appeared Pitch Black, gliding silently towards them. Finally, all the pieces have come together, Pitch said, looking at his captives. He smiled. Now the real show can begin. Pitch has them captured. What will he do next, and can Baby Tooth reach the others in time? Find out in the next chapter where Pitch reveals his plan. Please review, as I love hearing your thoughts, and reviews encourage me to write faster. Chapter 14. Last time, as Jamie struggled to get free, a familiar but spine-chilling laugh that haunted his dreams echoed around the clearing. Out of the shadows appeared Pitch Black, gliding silently towards them. Finally, all the pieces have come together, Pitch said, looking at his captives. He smiled. Now the real show can begin. The Guardians struggled to get up, but couldn't as their strength failed them. Don't bother trying to get up, Guardians, Pitch said. Then again, it is amusing to see you keep trying. He walked towards them. You have no idea how it warms my heart to see you so defenseless and weak. Especially after what you did to me, leaving me with my nightmares. Pitch stopped, calming down. I believe my other guest would like to meet you too. He creates the most beautiful and powerful nightmares. Snapping his fingers, a private parts of black sand floated towards them and opened up. A man fell to the ground and didn't move, but they could see he was alive from his moans. Lifting his head, the guardians, Harry and Jamie, saw it was none other than Sirius Black. But he looked awful. His black hair fell in greasy clumps. His skin was extremely pale. There was practically no fat on his body, huge black shadows under his eyes like bruises, and his eyes were black with pain, suffering, and sorrow. As Sirius looked at them, a new emotion faintly appeared, hope, and looking at Harry, fondness. Waving his hand, the black sand holding Harry disappeared, and Pitch walked over to him, helping him up. Placing his hands warmly on Harry's shoulders, Pitch turned him to face Sirius Black. Harry surprisingly didn't struggle against the hold. "You see, Harry," Pitch said, leaning close to Harry's ear, "this is the man who betrayed your parents to Voldemort. He's the reason they're dead and why you're an orphan. If it weren't for him, your parents would still be alive." Harry's face darkened and his hands clenched tightly. "You're right. So it's up to you, Harry," Pitch continued. "Will you avenge your parents, Harry? Or let their murderer live? He already escaped from Azkaban once. Who says he won't do it again? This is your chance, use it wisely." Harry walked towards Sirius, drawing his wand. Jamie struggled to get free. "No, Harry. Don't do it. Jamie's right, mate. Don't listen to that bloody dingo," Bunny shouted. "Pitch is lying, Harry. He only wants to help himself, not you," North pleaded. "Please, Harry. Pitch is evil. You can't trust him," Tooth begged. "Pitch only wants you to suffer, Harry. He doesn't want to help you, but we do," Jack cried urgently. At that, Harry snapped to face them, anger evident on his face, and the guardians saw around his head swirled black sand faintly but became clearer and clearer with each word he said. "Help me? Help me? If you wanted to help me, where were you all those years ago while I was at the Dursleys, huh? That's right, you weren't. If you're the good guys, why didn't you protect and save me when I was forced to spend my childhood in a closet, constantly bullied and beat up by my cousin, and never received anything to make my life more joyful? Instead, I grew up being called boy and freak while my cousin was loved and got Easter eggs, Christmas presents, tooth money, and happy dreams. And you, Jack, you got my firebolt taken away from me, the best present I've ever got. You've never helped me, and now you tell me you know what's best for me? You're wrong. I don't need you, and my life was better off without you." Silence fell upon them in the clearing. The guardians and Jamie were shocked. How could Harry accuse them of that? Okay. Well, the guardians knew they could have helped Harry's life, but they never ignored him on purpose, and they did have his best interests at heart. Jack looked at the sand swirling around Harry's head. "Pitch, what have you done to Harry?" "Very observant, Frost," remarked Pitch. "Harry is simply under my influence and has been for many months. You recall him receiving the firebolt, don't you? Well, it so happens you and Hermione Granger were right, as Sirius did send it to Harry as a gift. But it had no hexes or curses in it, just a present for his dear godson." The guardians, minus Jack, Tooth, and Jamie, gasped. Pitch smirked. "Oh, didn't you know? Sirius Black is Harry's godfather." "Now where was I? Oh yes, the firebolt. Well, as the firebolt was on its way by owl mail, I captured the owl and put my sand into the broomstick before sending the owl on its way to Hogwarts. Having a hunch you would take the firebolt away to check for hexes in it, I made as soon as Harry touched the broom, the sand would travel to him. For months Harry has had my sand all around him, and I've been able to place thoughts into his head such as, 'Don't trust the guardians, they've never been there for you,' and 'Sirius Black is the reason your parents are dead. Avenge your parents.' It was hard at first, but soon Harry became completely under my control. He will only listen to me and not you. Everything has fallen into place." "Drain them more." The Dementors sucked in deeper, making the guardians cry out in agony as their happiness was being taken away, and the effects of not being believed in increased. Genius, is it not? The Dementors are known for sucking out happiness, and to Jack, who protects fun, this is truly painful for him, as it is for all of you. For you all gain happiness as power with your jobs, as I gain fear from mine. Though unfortunately the worst the Dementors can do is cause you pain and make you unconscious. Even their kiss of death or the sucking of your soul wouldn't work, as we are immortal. But," Pitch said fondly, gazing at his nightmares, "that's when my nightmares come in. They're able to combine with the Dementors' powers to make you feel the effect of not being believed in, and it's far less complicated than dealing with the world's children. This way you'll be dead, and I barely have to life a finger." The bogeyman looked at Jamie and Harry as his expression grew thoughtful. Now there's only two things left to do to fully destroy you. Have you witness an innocent kill an innocent and the strongest believer be killed. So I might as well start with Jamie. The sand formed a dagger in Pitch's hand as he walked towards Jamie, ignoring the Guardian's renewed struggles. Placing it against Jamie's neck, Pitch paused. Then again. I would really like you to watch Jamie. Watch as your friend, the great hero Harry Potter, takes an innocent life. Go ahead, Harry, avenge your parents. Harry walked determinedly to Sirius Black and pointed his wand at his neck, his eyes full of hatred. For my mum and dad. Sirius closed his eyes, waiting. Will Harry kill Sirius? We'll find out next chapter. Chapter 15. Harry opened his mouth when Harry stopped. He saw to his surprise it was Professor Lupin, Ron, Hermione, and Baby Tooth. Harry faced them but didn't lower his wand from Sirius' neck. Don't do this, Harry. Hermione begged. You guys don't understand. I have to. He killed my parents. He's the reason they're dead. No, Harry, Professor Lupin said. Sirius isn't the one who killed your parents. We used to be friends at Hogwarts, your father, Sirius, and I, with another student called Peter Pettigrew. We called ourselves the Marauders as we were known for playing pranks. We also created the Marauders map using our nicknames. Peter was Wormtail, Sirius was Padfoot, your father James was Prongs, and I was Moony. You couldn't find a closer group of friends than us. That's what makes Sirius' betrayal worse. Harry interrupted. He was their friend and betrayed them to Voldemort. He was even named my godfather and still betrayed them. At Lupin's surprised look, Harry added, I overheard Professor McGonagall and the minister talking about it in the Three Broomsticks. Harry, there's more you need to hear, and you need to know more my past friendship at Hogwarts. You see, I was unfortunate before coming to Hogwarts as I was bitten by a werewolf when I was quite young, and so I became one. I knew it, yelled Hermione. Lupin turned to her with a puzzled expression. How did you know? Ever since Professor Snape set the werewolf essay. Ah yes, he deliberately said it in the hope someone would find out. You truly are the cleverest which I've ever met. Hey, Ron cried, not important right now. Right, Lupin agreed. Dumbledore still let me come to Hogwarts, and every full moon I would go the Shrieking Shack via the secret tunnel under the Whipping Willow, which was planted there to keep students away from discovering it. All the howling and shrieking people claimed from the shack were made by me, creating the story the shack was haunted. I couldn't keep the secret forever though, as James, Sirius, and Peter found out. To keep me company they managed to turn themselves into Animagus, with James as a stag, Sirius as a black dog, and Peter as a rat. James and Sirius animals forms could keep me controlled and restrained if needed to, and Peter in his rat form could move under the Whipping Willow undetected to press the knob to freeze the willow. This way I could run in the forests with them. That's a nice story, but I don't get what this has to do with Sirius' betrayal. Harry muttered. It's because you need to know for the truth to make sense. A raspy voice gasped. It was Sirius Black who had spoken then. When your parents went into hiding, they cast a Fidelius charm which would keep them hidden from anyone except who had been told of their location by their secret keeper. I was supposed to be their secret keeper, but at the last minute we changed it for Peter to be it, as it wouldn't be obvious to Voldemort and I would be a decoy. Peter was the one who betrayed your parents, not me. Afterwards, when I tracked him down, he faked his own death by shouting how I had betrayed James, and Lily then blew up the street behind him, killing those muggles, framing me for the murder. I knew he must have chopped off his finger, leaving it behind for the Ministry to find, to make them think he was dead, then escaped down the sewers with the other rats, which is why he's missing a toe. I thought Peter must be dead or in hiding until I saw in the paper the picture of the Weasley family in Egypt with the rat on your friend's shoulder. After seeing Peter change so many times, I would recognize that rat anywhere. So I escaped and came to find him. Hermione's cat Crookshanks tried to help me many times until he faked his death, then shortly after I was captured by Pitch Black and have been here ever since. How did you escape? Demanded Ron. The Dementor's effect doesn't work on animals, so I spent my time mostly as a dog, and since the Dementors are blind, the day they were bringing food to my cell I slipped out through the door and escaped. Sirius is right, Harry, about Peter, Lupin agreed. After I had confiscated the map off you, I saw Peter show up on the map the day you snuck off to see Hagrid as I was drinking my Wolfsbane potion. Coming back from the hut, I was shocked to see there were 5 with the name Peter Pettigrew showing next to Ron. The map must have lied. Harry argued. The map doesn't lie. Peter is alive and he's the rat in Ron's pocket. Prove it. Lupin gestured for Ron to give him the rat. When Ron hesitated, Hermione sighed and grabbed Scabbers, who was struggling now. The body lock spell had worn off. Handing him over to Lupin, the professor pointed his wand at Peter, and immediately the rat changed into a small, scrawny man with beady eyes and terrified expression. The man still looked like a rat. Remus, my old friend. Peter squeaked nervously with a small smile. Hello, Peter. Long time no see, particularly after going into hiding from Sirius. Sirius was going to kill me. I had to go into hiding. He's evil. He follows the Dark Lord. Sirius laughed, but it came out as a sick cough. Me follow Voldemort? He rasped, ignoring Peter's wince. Too scared to hear your master's name, Wormtail? When you were the one to sell out James and Lily to him. Peter swallowed hard. He threatened me, Sirius. He was going to kill me. Then you should have died for them. Be loyal to them, shouted Lupin. But if he works for Voldemort, said Hermione, why didn't he kill Harry before? He's been sleeping in the same dormitory for the last 2 years. She's right. I've never laid a hand on Harry's head. Peter cried. Because you had no reason to since the Dark Lord was gone. Lupin rebutted. You were only thinking of saving your own skin, and living as a pet rat of a pure blood family meant you got the best care with all the magical news. The black sand around Harry vanished, and his mind was clear for the first time in weeks. Shaking it, he put away his wand and helped Sirius up. A warm smile passed between them. So I guess that means I have another family member. Harry said been wanting to meet you for years. Sirius smiled back. No. Ron, don't let them kill me. I was your pet rat. Ron looked disgusted and moved away. I let you sleep in my bed. Lupin walked towards Peter, raising his wand. If Voldemort doesn't kill you, then I will. No, Harry said. Let him live. We'll take him to the castle, and Sirius, you'll have to be set free, and Peter, take your place. Just like your mother. Thinking things through, Sirius said. Harry smirked. Not all the time. Peter suddenly broke into a run away from the clearing. Petrificus totalis, shouted Hermione. Peter instantly froze again. I think that's becoming my signature spell with all the times I've had to use it today. Lupin summoned Peter back and cast another spell to tie him up, just in case the spell wears off again. Ron suddenly remembered Pitch and looked to find the Guardians still being drained. Jamie still alive and Pitch sitting on a black sand chair calmly observing. Hey, why didn't you do anything all through that? Pitch started laughing. He tricked us. Hermione angrily. It was all a setup. You certainly are a very clever girl for your age, Hermione. Pitch chuckled darkly. You're right. The innocent killing an innocent was simply just a distraction. While you were convincing Harry not to kill Sirius, the Guardians were slowly being killed with no interruptions, and it was entertaining to watch. Also, the killing the strongest believer isn't needed either, but I've still got a punishment for dear Jamie, because if it wasn't for him, I would have succeeded before. He cocked his head at Jamie. I think a never-ending sleep tormented endlessly by nightmares should do the trick, don't you think? I don't think so, cried Harry, expecto patronum. A white burst came out and hit the Dementors, but to no avail, as their black sand shields protected them. Everyone do the spell. Maybe together we can beat them. Think of your happiest memory. As Ron and Hermione tried with only white mist appearing, Lupin cast his Patronus, which was a werewolf, before quickly throwing a wand to Sirius. Sirius felt the familiar energy of his wand run through him. You had my wand? Lupin grinned. Kept it all these years. Now cast your Patronus already. As Sirius cast his, a dog appeared. With these Patronus together, it still didn't work. Harry saw the Guardians slumped on the ground, breathing shallowly. Hearing Pitch's laugh again, he breathed in deeply, thinking of his happy memory. Expecto Patronum. A magnificent white stag appeared and, seeing it, Sirius whispered in shock. Prongs? As the dog and werewolf Patronus moved to stand next to the stag, it renewed Ron and Hermione's efforts, and casting the spell together, soon an otter and beagle joined them. The Patronus ran towards the Dementors, and in one attack the Dementors, Nightmares and Pitch were blown away from the Guardians and Jamie, who was released from his bonds. Lupin quickly got out some chocolate and shoved it into the Guardians and Jamie's mouths, and they recovered quickly. Harry helped Jack up. I'm so sorry for what I said. Jack smiled, pulling Harry into a hug. It's okay, Harry. I was once tricked by Pitch too. Lupin suddenly froze, looking at the full moon appearing over the clearing. Shuddering, he shouted, "Get back!" before he changed into a werewolf. After the transformation was complete, Lupin looked curiously at them and made no sign to attack. "It's okay, everyone," Sirius said. "Remus had taken his wolfsbane potion, so he's in complete control." Lupin nodded in response, walking towards them. Seeing Pitch appear out of the shadows again with his nightmares and the Dementors, he growled. Pitch snarled angrily. "Get them," he ordered. The Dementors and nightmares swarmed in. Sandy immediately got out his dream sands and turning the nightmares into dream sand or destroying them. Bunny threw his boomerangs. North got his swords, slicing them to bits. Tooth used her wings with Baby Tooth helping, and Jack used his staff. As the Guardians battled, Harry and the others helped too as they cast spell after spell at the nightmares. Stuffing their mouths full of chocolate, it made saying the spells harder but helped hugely against the Dementors. Lupin also helped ripping the nightmares apart, and since the Dementors' effect didn't work on animals, he could easily fight against them. Soon nearly all the nightmares were destroyed. Pitch was furious. His plan had been perfect and now it was failing. Disappearing into the shadows, he reappeared right to Jack, grabbing his staff. Spinning Jack to face him, he caught the Winter Spirit's arm in a tight grip, squeezing painfully. As Jack struggled, Pitch formed a dagger in his hand. "If I'm going down, then at least I'll take the Guardian I hate the most down with me." Jack stared at the dagger plunging downwards, barely hearing Jamie cry, "Jack!" Just before the dagger hit him, Jack was pushed roughly out of the way, tumbling along the ground. Hearing a cry of pain, he looked up, and to his horror Jamie was standing where he was with a black dagger in his heart. Jamie looked at him. "Jack?" he whispered weakly. Then his eyes closed and he fell to the ground motionless. "No!" Jack screamed. How evil is Pitch? And on to the next chapter. Chapter 16. Wow! 3 chapters in one day. Record for me. Disclaimer: I own nothing. Last time. Hearing a cry of pain, he looked up, and to his horror Jamie was standing where he was with a black dagger in his heart. Jamie looked at him. "Jack?" he whispered weakly. Then his eyes closed and he fell to the ground motionless. "No!" Jack screamed. Pitch laughed, looking coldly on Jamie's body. "Fitting, is it not, Frost? You tried so hard to keep Jamie safe, only to become the cause of his death." Pitch laughed harder. Jack's grip on his staff tightened as he stood up. His face was murderous. "Ah!" he screamed as he released a powerful blast of frost at him. The nightmares and Dementors. Bunny, seeing what Jack was doing, quickly pushed Ron and Hermione down to the ground. North and Tooth pushed Sirius and Lupin to the ground too, as Sandy created a shield around them. The frost went all throughout the clearing, destroying all the remaining nightmares and stunning the Dementors. When Sandy removed the shield, they all looked in amazement as the whole clearing was completely covered in frost. All the nightmares gone and the Dementors stunned. Jack was attacking Pitch with extreme ferocity, and they saw Jamie's body lying on the ground. "No, breathe, Hermione." As they moved towards Jamie, the Dementors recovered and resumed their attack on them. When Harry was casting his Patronus against one of them, one of the Dementors had snuck up behind him, closing in until... Squawk! Buckbeak, with the chain around his neck broken off, clawed at the Dementor, sending it retreating. Harry gratefully stroked Buckbeak's neck. "It's a good thing you're here, Buckbeak. Dumbledore was right. Saving an innocent life will help you." Buckbeak nuzzled him in reply before running away to pounce on another Dementor attacking Sirius. As they kept fighting, Harry heard Ron call out, "Every spell we cast them is blocked by that black sand. Unless we get rid of it, we're dead." Harry smiled. "Ron, you're a bloody genius." "I am?" Harry nodded before turning to Sandy. "Sandy, you can turn Pitch's sand back into dream sand. You can release the Dementors." Sandy clapped his hands in glee, then held out his hands. Strands of dream sand spread out and wove around the Dementors. Concentrating, the black sand slowly turned to dream sand and the Dementors were released. In anger, they stopped their attack and rushed towards Pitch, who had just successfully knocked Jack into a tree. "What are you doing? You're under my control. Stop! Stop!" Seeing they weren't listening and starting to feel their effect on him, Pitch turned to run when Buckbeak pinned him to the ground, sitting on him, making it impossible for him to move. As the angry Dementors swarmed around Pitch, He withered in agony as his happy memories were drained. Harry relaxed when he heard a familiar voice. Harry. All of them turned around to see Ginny, Neville and the twins, Professor Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, Professor Snape and the minister rushing towards them. Ginny, what are you doing here? Asked Ron. Professor Lupin told us to get Professor Dumbledore and the minister, Ginny replied. After telling them what happened, we got here as soon as we could. Hermione turned to the minister. Minister, the Dementors are back under your control. They've been released from Pitches. Cornelius sighed in relief and called them off Pitch. As the once great bogeyman man whimpered, Sandy summoned a private parts of dream sand and sent Pitch to sleep, binding him with dream sand. Jack's head snapped up. Jamie! He cried, running to him. Jamie was completely still. His eyes closed and his skin was pale and ice cold to the touch. Feeling for a pulse, Jack managed to find it after a few pain seconds. It was very faint and his breathing was very shallow. Jack scooped Jamie up in his arms, taking off the ground. Stopping by Harry, he paused to fish something out of his pocket and tossed it to him. I've got to get Jamie to the hospital. Show this to Dumbledore and the minister, it will help. It was the reason I was away from Hogwarts. Then Jack swiftly flew off towards the castle. Cornelius spotted Sirius. Sirius Black. Dementors, arrest him. The Dementors swarmed in but stopped as Harry, Hermione and Ron stepped in front of Sirius with their wands drawn. Lupin growling at them in warning and Buckbeak as well. Sirius is innocent, minister. Harry cried. You can't arrest him. Obviously been confounded, minister. Snape said. Poor Potter and his friends are obviously confused. Harry is right, Hermione argued. Yeah, agreed Ron, it was Scabbers or Peter Pettigrew who's guilty. Mr. Weasley, McGonagall said. Peter Pettigrew has been dead for years. Then how he is tied up over there? Neville asked, pointing to Peter Pettigrew still tied up at the edge of the clearing. The minister and Snape's eyes widened as they saw him. Well, Cornelius coughed, though Peter Pettigrew is alive, we still need proof to prove Sirius is innocent, which we don't have. So Sirius will still have to go back to Azkaban. Harry looked at the object in his hand. Here. Is this proof? Tooth flew over and smiled. This is one of my teeth canisters where I store someone's baby teeth, she said, addressing the group. It stores their most important memories, and being the guardian of memories, I can access them and allow others to see them. These are Sirius Black's memories. Gesturing them over, Tooth instructed the teachers, minister, Sirius and Harry to touch the canister. Placing her hand on it, the canister opened and memories flooded them. Of Sirius having fun with his friends at Hogwarts, him attending James and Lily's wedding, meeting Harry as a baby, and finally the memory Tooth wanted appeared. The scene changed to James and Lily's living room where Harry was sleeping peacefully in his mother's arms. Sirius was with them. James, Lily. I know we agreed for me to be your secret keeper, but I've come up with a better idea. Out of the chimney appeared Green Fire and Peter Pettigrew stepped through. Peter Pettigrew should be your secret keeper. But Sirius, Lily cried. Lily, think about it, Sirius replied. Voldemort will certainly think it's me and come after me. He won't even suspect Peter. This way you're likely to be safer and it will be less obvious. Peter stepped forward smiling. It'll be an honor to help my friends in these dark times. Lily still looked uncertain until James put his arm around her. Sirius is right, honey. I don't like setting Sirius up as a decoy either, but this is the only way until Voldemort is defeated. We have to protect Harry. Sighing, Lily nodded her consent and James and Peter got out their wands. Muttering a spell too faint for the teachers, minister, Sirius, Harry and Tooth to hear. Then the scene changed to an alleyway where Sirius was running after Peter. Peter, wait. Peter stopped. Yes, Sirius? James and Lily were found dead in their homes 2 days ago. Yes, very unfortunate. They were my good friends and only their secret keeper could reveal their location. Romtail, Sirius interrupted coldly. How could you? Peter backed up, looking around nervously before spotting the muggles behind and smiled grimly. Turning back to Sirius, his expression changed from nervous and anxious to determined and grim. How could you, Sirius? Peter shouted angrily. They were your best friends and you betrayed them to Voldemort. You're a monster. Before Sirius could speak, Peter cast a spell behind his back, blowing up the street, then disappeared in a flash of light. When the flash cleared down, Sirius could see only his wand and a finger was left. while a group of rats beside him fled into the sewer grate. At that, the memories were finished and the teachers, Minister, Sirius and Harry found themselves back in the clearing with Tooth holding the teeth canister. They stood in shock until Dumbledore spoke. Now, Minister, with this information we've just been shown, I assume now you'll pardon Sirius and arrest Peter Pettigrew? Yes, of course, Cornelius coughed. Dementors take Peter away to Azkaban and make sure he doesn't escape. The Dementors floated to the now struggling Peter. The body lock spell had worn off again, and picked him up. As they led him away, the Minster looked almost longingly at Sirius. Are you sure he's not guilty? He could have fabricated the memories. Snape quickly agreed, it's very possible. Tooth placed her hands on her hips. No, he's not. The memories aren't fake, for they can't be altered or erased. Also, your teeth can't carry lies, for everyone knows it's your tongue that carries lies. Seeing the Minister's still hesitant expression, she huffed, Don't think I would lie, Minister, because I'm a guardian of childhood dedicated to protecting all children. If Sirius was a threat to Harry, I wouldn't be defending him. Cornelius sighed in agreement and turned to Sirius Black. You're a free man, Mr. Black. I'll call the off the hunt for you. As the Minister walked away to follow the Dementors, they heard him muttering, Sirius Black innocent? The Daily Prophet's going to have a field day. Dumbledore turned to Lupin. A good thing you took your Wolfsbane potion tonight, isn't it, Remus? Lupin yipped in response. Well, I'll see you in the morning after you've changed back. Lupin howled before running off into the forest. Now we probably should go to the hospital. Hopefully Jamie is all right. Harry and his fellow students looked at each other in silent hope. They could only hope he was. When they got to the hospital ward, it was empty except for one occupied bed in the corner by the window. Walking to the bed, Madame Pomfrey was there casting spells over Jamie as Jack sat by him holding his hand. The nurse stopped, putting her wand away and laying her hand on Jack's shoulder. He looked at her with such hope it tore Madame Pomfrey to have to say it. I'm sorry, Jack, she said gently, he's gone. Jack pushed her off. No, you're wrong. He can't be. He turned to Sandy. Sandy used dream sand. It worked for me, it has to work for him. Sandy slowly flew forward and created a blanket of dream sand. Placing it over Jamie, the dream sand glowed, then disappeared. Jamie's coloring went back to normal and his skin was no longer ice cold, but no movement. He looked like he was deeply asleep, about to wake up. Sandy shook his head. Jack's eyes filled with tears and bent over Jamie, crying heavily. Dumbledore, the other teachers and Sirius bowed their heads in respect, with Harry and the others crying too, heads bowed. As the moon started to fade away with the sunrise of a new day, Jack whispered, You truly were a guardian today, my little brother. I cried writing this last scene with Jamie. Until next chapter, please review. I would like at least 10 to 15 comments before I update the next chapter, please. Chapter 17. As usual, I own nothing. As the new day dawned, the last bit of moonlight shone through the window. As it rose to rest over Jamie, the moonbeam glowed, unnoticed by the bowed heads around him. As the glowing faded away, Jack was still crying, holding Jamie's hand. I'm gonna miss him so much, he sobbed. I should have died. Not Jamie. You do care. Jack froze and looked up slowly. Jamie was sitting up on the bed smiling. Alive? Couldn't be true, could it? Jamie leaned forward and patted his hand. Yes, he was alive. Jamie! Jack cried and pulled him into a fierce, tight hug. The other guardians, teachers, Sirius and students heard the joyful cry and looked up to see the impossible. Jamie was alive. Harry and his friends swarmed around him with the guardians, crying with relief. Jack still hadn't released Jamie from his hug. Jack, Jamie gasped, I can't breathe. Jack released him, but how? The dagger? Pitch, we saw you. After Pitch stabbed me, I only remember it going dark. I was so scared and grew sleepier and sleepier. Then I heard someone talking in my head. It was a comforting, calming voice, which immediately took away my fears and I wasn't scared anymore. The voice said, You made a very noble and great sacrifice today, and this is why you have the true heart and soul of a guardian, Jamie. At that point, I didn't know what to think, but I knew something was happening. Then the voice spoke again. Though you would have made a terrific guardian, the world needs more children like you. Good luck, Jamie Bennett. Then it went all bright, and the next thing I knew, I was waking up here. Harry and his friends came forward to hug Jamie, and the guardians looked at the moon fading away in the daylight. Thank you, Manny, Jack whispered. Thank you. Hermione then noticed something. Hey, Jamie, what's that? Under your hair? Curious. North brushed away Jamie's hair, and on his right temple was a silvery marking in the shape of a G. Jamie is lucky. Man in Moon has named him Guardian. At the confused looks he was receiving, he continued, when we were made guardians we received that marking too. Mine is on my chest, Tooth's on her ankle under her feathers, Bunny's on his forearm under his fur, Sandy's on his wrist, and Jack's on the back of his neck. Jamie rubbed his hand over the mark and then grinned at Jack. Cool. I guess we really are brothers now since we have something in common, apart from dying protecting someone. Jack laughed, pulling Jamie into a hug. Don't ever do that again, mind you. Never again. Dumbledore looked at his fellow teachers. McGonagall was wiping her eyes, and even Snape's frown wasn't as deep as usual. After taking off his spectacles to wipe his eyes, he smiled at his colleagues. Powerful, isn't it? McGonagall and Snape turned to him. In all my years of wizardry, Dumbledore stated calmly, wiping his spectacles, this powerful type of magic has always stood out the most, the power of love and friendship. Madame Pomfrey at that moment quickly passed out some chocolate for the Guardians, Jamie, Sirius, and the Golden Trio. You've been around Dementors for so long, you need as much chocolate as you can eat. I'll happily have Tooth's, as she doesn't eat sweets. Bunny called out. Tooth smacked him on the head. If chocolate is going to help me recover quickly from the Dementors, then I will eat it. I'll just have to brush my teeth for longer than 3 minutes tonight, and all of you should too. You, Bunny, are such a chocoholic. I am the Easter Bunny who hides chocolate eggs? Or do you not remember? Oh yes, I remember. I remember very well that every time I get teeth at Easter they're unbrushed, unflossed, and covered in chocolate. Oh, shut it, you two. Boomed North, or get a room. That shut the two bickering guardians up. Madame Pomfrey soon quickly ushered everyone out. Mr. Potter and Mr. Bennet need peace and quiet to heal, and visiting time is over. Everyone out now. As everyone started to walk out, not you, Mr. Black. Sirius turned around. I would love to sleep, Poppy, but I feel better already now that I'm free, and I need to go to the ministry to finalize my pardon. Also, I haven't been able to go to sleep for weeks without nightmares, so I think it's best I get my first night's sleep in my own bed back at Black Manor. Making he has a manor. Seeing Harry look saddened at his departure, he quickly gave him a hug. I'll be back, cub, you can bet on it. After not being able to see you for 12 years, we definitely have some catching up to do. At that, the teachers, minus Dumbledore and Sirius, left the hospital ward, followed shortly by Ginny, Neville, the twins, Ron and Hermione, who promised Harry and Jamie they would visit as soon as they can, with the twins throwing out to Jamie, see you later, miniature. Dumbledore. The Guardians and Dumbledore turned to Jamie. Miniature Dumbledore? Bunny asked. Harry and Jack burst out laughing, leaving Jamie to explain. It's their nickname for me, as apparently I'm a lot like Professor Dumbledore because I'm not afraid of the Dementors and I look at you like I know something. Dumbledore let out a laugh of merriment. I do agree we have those things in common, Jamie. But you can be sure there are many things I admire of you as well. Then Dumbledore faced the Guardians. We still have Pitch to deal with, who I believe in, bound in your dream sand with Buckbeak guarding him. North nodded, becoming grave again, and followed Dumbledore out with the other Guardians, wishing Harry and Jamie a speedy recovery on the way out. Jack smiled at Harry and Jamie. I better go help, and turned to go. Wait, Jack, Harry said. Thank you, and I'm sorry. Jack smiled forgivingly, giving one last hug to the boys. As Jamie wasn't letting go, Jack chuckled. You just focus on getting better, Jamie. I'll be right here when you wake up. Then Jack left, and with Madame Pomfrey quickly changing them into pajamas and seeing Harry drop off to sleep in the bed beside him, Jack laid his head back on his pillow. Madame Pomfrey dimmed the lights and closed the curtains as his eyes closed. Jamie sighed peacefully before dropping off into a deep, restful sleep. Jamie's not dead. Jamie's not dead. Jamie's not dead. Yay! I would never have Jamie stay dead. I'm too much of a sucker for happy endings. Only 3 chapters left to go, and to anyone who hates me for killing Jamie, you don't have to hate me anymore. Now with this chapter, please tell me what you think, and also whether you like the Guardian G mark. That idea literally popped into my head as I was writing this chapter. See you next time. Chapter 18. For 3 days Jamie and Harry stayed in the hospital ward, recovering with daily visits from the Guardians and their friends. Their treatment was mostly rest, and Madame Pomfrey had them eat 3 huge bars of chocolate a day. which the boys didn't complain about too much. Sandy had also visited daily for daily checkups to remove all traces of any black sand in Harry, and had also gone over his firebolt in case. When it was declared all clear, he gave it back to a deeply grateful and ecstatic Harry. In that time, the Yetis had gone home shortly after Pitch had been defeated, as they missed their home, and with so many toys to make for Christmas they had to catch up. From Hermione and Ron's constant visits, Harry and Jamie also heard how Hermione had given back her time turner to Professor McGonagall, as she had cut back on her subjects and it was getting too stressful to manage for her. At that, Harry and Ron cried amen. Some sad news which Harry and Jamie were shocked and angry to hear was Professor Lupin had resigned. As Professor Snape had not so subtly revealed he was a werewolf to his Slytherin students, and many parents had written to Dumbledore wanting Lupin gone. But Lupin, before leaving, gave Ron the Marauders map to give to Harry, saying it's Harry's now. The tale of the battle with Pitch had, unsurprisingly, spread like wildfire, and soon the whole school knew. Jamie was now regarded as a hero for saving Jack Frost and earned a new title, the Guardian Kid, from his connections to the Guardians and from the silvery G mark they had heard of on Jamie's right temple. The only part of the battle that hadn't got out was of when Harry was about to kill Sirius, and Dumbledore agreed with the Guardians and Sirius it was better no one knew of it. Speaking of Sirius, he was now officially a free man, and Peter Pettigrew had been sentenced for life imprisonment in Azkaban. Harry, for the first time since knowing who betrayed his parents, felt at peace knowing their betrayer was serving his time in Azkaban with the Dementors. Buckbeak had also been released from his death sentence for saving Harry's life from the Dementor and stopping Pitch from escaping, but wasn't allowed to stay on Hogwarts grounds near the students, so Sirius Black had taken him in to live at Black Manor, where he would be able to roam around free in the surrounding forests and have Hagrid visit him at any time. Meanwhile, Pitch had been taken care of. Finding him still bound by Sandy's dream sand and sat on by Buckbeak, Sandy, North and Dumbledore took Pitch back to Burgess where his lair was. Seeing Pitch's fear at being trapped with his nightmares that had tormented him, Sandy took pity on Pitch and swiftly destroyed them before shutting Pitch in. Sandy, Dumbledore and Man in Moon then, with a combination of Sandy's dream sand, Dumbledore's magic and Man in Moon's powers, created a powerful seal to keep Pitch trapped there forever. Nobody more than Jack and Jamie were relieved to hear that. As Harry and Jamie exited the hospital ward, their friends and other classmates streaming out to the grounds quickly swept them up. "Guys, what's going on?" Jamie asked. One of the first years excitedly explained. "It's Easter and the Easter Bunny has hidden eggs around the whole school." Harry and Jamie looked at each other. "We have been eating 3 bars of chocolate a day," Harry said thoughtfully. Jamie laughed. "Yeah, but you can never have too much chocolate, and bunnies is the best. Let's go." And the boys ran out with their schoolmates to join in the hunt, and they were pleasantly surprised to see even the Slytherins joined in as well and happily mingling with the other houses. After the eventful egg hunt, everyone had plenty, and it was hilarious watching the students chase down their eggs which tried to run away from them. The best part was when the eggs ran into Snape's office, and when Bunny arrived to clear them out back outside, they found Snape sitting stiffly and grimly with colorful eggs all around him. Bunny, as a way of apology, gave Snape a beautifully painted gray, black and silver egg which Snape ignored at first, but Dumbledore saw he was happily eating it later. Jamie ran off with Lauren and the other first years while Harry told his friends he needed to see Professor Dumbledore and left for the headmaster's office. Meeting the gargoyle guarding it outside, Harry groaned, mentally hitting himself for forgetting he needed a password. The gargoyle then moved aside and, though confused, Harry didn't miss the chance and made his way up the stairs. Knocking on the door, he heard Dumbledore's voice saying, "Come in." Entering, Harry saw not only Dumbledore was there, but also he now officially free godfather. Sirius was looking much better and healthier in a now fine black suit, and was beaming at the sight of his godson. "I had a feeling as soon as you were let out of hospital you would want to see me," Dumbledore said, "so I instructed the gargoyle to let you in without a password. Please sit down." Harry sat down. "Professor, I'm sorry to disturb you, but—" "No need to feel sorry, Harry. Since my school is now safe, I have found myself suddenly with a lot of free time on my hands. What would you like to ask?" "Well, sir, since Sirius is innocent and is my godfather, that makes him my guardian. So I was hoping maybe I could live with Sirius instead of my uncle and aunts, if Sirius would have me." Sirius beamed but then shook his head. "I would accept you in a heartbeat, cub, and I was here to ask Professor Dumbledore if I could adopt you, but I'm afraid I can't at the moment." "Why not, Harry?" Dumbledore said. When your mother died sacrificing herself protecting you, she left a powerful shield forged by the most powerful magic of all, love. To ensure her shield would keep protecting you, I had to place you in a home with relatives related to your mother, creating what we call blood wards. Which is why you have to go back to the Dursleys. You mean I have to live with them till I die or Voldemort's dead? Harry cried in horror.
No, no.
Dumbledore chuckled. The wards will collapse when you become an adult in the wizarding world, which is 17. And you don't have to spend all your time there. Only about a month will keep the blood wards up. After a month you can live with whoever you desire. Harry looked at his godfather. Then can I live with you? I would love for you to come, but as I said before, not at the moment. I have to get my home in order and take care of a few things before I can let you live with me so I can take care of you properly. So for this summer I think it would be best if you went to the Weasleys. But you can bet we'll keep in contact, Cub. Harry hugged his godfather tightly. It's great to have another family member. Sirius hugged his godson tightly in response. A knock was heard and Professor McGonagall, looking very flustered, rushed in. I'm sorry to bother you, Headmaster, but Jack has covered the hallways with ice and all the students and teachers are slipping and sliding all over the place. Peeves and the Weasley twins, on their brooms, are also pelting water bombs at them while Jack is throwing snowballs all around and making it snow. Dumbledore chuckled heartily and left with McGonagall asking Harry to shut the door on their way out. Sirius looked at Harry. Jack's a very mischievous fellow, isn't he? Harry grinned, replying, you have no idea. Chapter 19. I own nothing and only one more chapter after this. It was finally the end of the school year and everyone was seated for the end-of-year feast with the Guardians sitting at the head table. As everyone finished eating, Dumbledore stood up tapping his glass. As our year finishes on one of the most strangest and exciting school year we've had, I would like to take a moment, as I do every year, to have a little chat with you all before you leave for summer break and forget everything. We've had a dangerous enemy threaten our friends and us, freed a falsely accused man, and have made new friends and allies in the Guardians. We've also learned how love and friendship is the most powerful type of magic. Not to mention some new pranks from our good friend Jack, which I'm sure you'll all try next year. So as you leave for summer, don't forget how precious and magical love and friendship is. And as we bid farewell to our new friends, I want them to know we'll never forget their help in saving us from pitch black. Thank you. Everyone clapped loudly, cheering for the Guardians, who blushed under the attention, except for Jack, who bowed, enjoying the praise. As the Guardians made their farewells and left the castle, followed by the students and teachers, North's sleigh pulled by his faithful reindeer appeared. As the Guardians, even Bunny, got on the sleigh, Sandy made fireworks from his dream sand, spelling the words goodbye, and Jack created a final wave of snow and snowflakes to softly fall. Dumbledore strangely then waved his wand over the Guardians, muttering something before placing it back in his pocket. Mate, what was that? Bunny pointed out. Oh, since you prefer not to be seen by everyone except your believers, Dumbledore said, I thought I better remove the revealing spell before you leave. It's now back to the way it was before, with only your believers being able to see you. At Dumbledore's words, everyone looked around to see if anyone couldn't see the Guardians anymore. But though no one knew it except for a certain man in the moon who was smiling widely, everyone in that courtyard could see the Guardians without the use of a spell. At the last minute before leaving, Jack quickly flew back, high-fived the twins, hugged Harry and hugged Jamie. I'll see you soon, little brother, during the summer, Jack whispered. I promise. Then Jack flew back to the sleigh, and with a crack of the reins the sleigh took off into the sky and out of sight. The next few days were surprisingly quiet without Jack around, until that one day where all the professors, minus Dumbledore, opened their office doors to have tons of snow and firecrackers burst out. Needless to say, Fred and George weren't seen for the rest of the day. The Hogwarts Express left the station back on the way to London. The Golden Trio had a cabin to themselves, as Jamie was sitting with Lauren and some other of his classmates he had become friends with. Do you think your uncle will let you stay with us this summer, Harry? Ron asked. I'm sure they will. They'll be overjoyed to get rid of me, the quicker the better. Well, Harry, Hermione said, until the month is over I will write to you regularly. I will too, mate. Ron added, you need any distraction to make life at your relatives more bearable. Harry smiled at his best friends. No one he felt could have better friends than he did. Though Jamie came in closely with the Guardians, Harry let his mind drift back to the conversation he had with Jamie before Jamie left to go sit with Lauren. "Hey Jamie, you gonna sit with us?" "No thanks, Harry. Lauren and some other classmates have saved me a seat. But thanks for the offer." Jamie then started to walk off. "No problem," and Jamie, "Yes, thanks. For renewing my faith in the Guardians and helping me save my godfather." Jamie smiled. "Thanks for being my friend."
Top? Top? Top?
Harry snapped out of his memory to find a small puffball of an owl tapping insistently at the window. Opening it, the owl swooped in and dropped a letter in Harry's lap. Apparently it was so ecstatic at delivering its letter it chirped excitedly and flew around the cabin. Hedwig gave an unimpressed hoot from her cage and Crookshanks watched the flying bird with wide eyes. Ron swiftly snatched the owl from the air away from Crookshanks, holding it firmly in his lap before gesturing for Harry to read the letter. "Hey guys, it's from Sirius. Dear Harry, I wanted you to get this letter before you reached London, as I'm not sure how your relatives react to owl mail. Black Manor is being fixed up quickly on schedule, and I've started arranging with the ministry to take custody of you, which is going very slowly. But I'll see you at the Weasleys as Ron's father has very kindly invited me to attend the Quidditch World Cup with you and his family. Hermione has also been invited too. Look forward to seeing you, Cub." And before I left I signed the Hogsmeade permission slip and handed it to Dumbledore so you'll be able to go to Hogsmeade. Love, Sirius. P.S. Tell Ron he can keep the owl as I feel I owe him a pet. My very own owl? Ron said, "Cool." Then shockingly to his friends he held the perched owl on his arm out to Crookshanks. "So what do you think? A normal owl?" Crookshanks purred contently. "Good enough for me. Now I can stop borrowing Percy's." Hermione chuckled, getting out a pack of cards from her bag. "Well, we've got a couple of hours before we arrive. Who wants to play Exploding Snap?" Harry waved goodbye to his friends as they left with their families. Mr. Weasley had assured Harry he would come and get him after a month to stay with them at the Burrow. Spotting his uncle, Harry made his way towards him when Jamie rushed in front. "Didn't think you could leave without saying goodbye?" Jamie teased before hugging Harry, who returned the hug happily. "Jamie," called a kind-looking woman standing with a young blonde girl. Jamie waved at them. "Coming, Mum." He picked up his bags. "Good luck with your relatives, Harry. Oh, and don't forget, look around your neighborhood this summer. You might have an invisible friend hanging around." Harry was puzzled by Jamie's words but quickly grabbed his bags and approached his uncle. As they were driving back to the house in silence, Harry caught the meaning of Jamie's words and couldn't stop the chuckle that broke through. "What's so funny, boy?" "Oh, just an inside joke, Uncle Vernon," Harry replied quickly, as Uncle Vernon huffed and went back to driving, muttering loudly that any magical jokes weren't funny. Harry smirked to himself. This summer might not be so bad after all. Almost finished. I know this is a short chapter, but I really wanted the epilogue to be its own chapter, which I plan to upload with this one, so I guess it doesn't really matter. Epilogue. This is it. The epilogue for Invisible Friend. Took me longer to get here than I planned to, but I'm finally finished. Just to quickly say, I don't own anything and enjoy. Sigh. Feeling very bored here, Harry thought, tapping his window. I never thought I would regret not having any chores to do. Life at the Dursleys had been miserable as usual, but now it was even more miserable due to a certain cousin's weight problem. Dudley had to go on a diet on orders from his school, so Harry, with the rest of his relatives, had been forced to live strictly on fruit and vegetables, though his portions were smaller so their precious Duddlekins would feel happier and more special than his cousin. Then again, Harry thought, smiling, it hadn't been completely bad. Arriving back, Harry was pleasantly surprised to find out Dudley had a rotten Easter, as he couldn't find any Easter eggs and didn't get any, though his parents assured him that they had. Even when he had taken some from other kids, they tasted awful to him, though the kids said they were delicious. Dudley was also not having particularly nice dreams either, and so was unable to muster the energy to play his favorite game of hunting Harry. So Harry hadn't received any bruises or had his glasses broken at all. Finally, whenever Dudley went outside, he always found himself slipping over or getting hit by something cold. Once he swore it was ice he had slipped on, and it was a snowball that hit him, but his gang looked at him crazily since it was summer. Dudley passed it off as not getting enough sleep, so he must have been seeing things. Harry's uncle was eager to be rid of Harry, and was almost happier than Harry hearing how someone else wanted to take him in after a month. He did hesitate at first hearing how excited Harry was for the Quidditch World Cup, not wanting Harry to have fun, but upon hearing Harry was about to write to his criminal godfather Sirius, he quickly agreed. Man, that threat worked every time. The time was also made less bearable by all the letters he received from his friends and Sirius, who had also sent him plenty of chocolate and lollies upon hearing of the diet that was perfect for the huge piglet of a cousin Sirius wrote. Also Harry found to his shock and joy that Jamie lived only 2 blocks away. Whenever Harry had finished his chores for the day, he would run out to play with Jamie. And Dudley didn't bother them anymore after trying once to bully Jamie to stop being Harry's friend, when he found himself suddenly dangling from a tree branch frozen in frost. It took him an hour to thaw out, and Dudley never bothered Jamie again, running away instead whenever he saw him. Harry crossed off another day on his calendar. Only 2 more weeks before the month was up and he could leave. Harry sighed again, not feeling very happy about it. 2 weeks at the Dursleys felt like a long time. Splat! A snowball hit Harry's window and he gazed outside. He saw Jamie grinning madly at him and waving while Jack lazily floated in the air, beckoning to Harry while tossing a snowball around. Harry grinned, grabbing a jumper, and rushed downstairs. Running for the door, Harry stopped quickly by the living room where his uncle, aunt, and cousin were watching TV. Just going out for a bit. We'll be back to make dinner. Bye. Harry called hurriedly and ran out the door, barely hearing Vernon's bellow behind him. Let's get out of here quickly. But I have to be back to make dinner at 6:30, Harry said, joining his friends. Jamie just laughed, saying his uncle and cousin could go without having dinner before taking Harry's hand in his own. Jack promptly grabbed hold of Jamie's hand and flew up, the wind easily supporting the winter spirit and the 2 boys flying alongside him. Let's go to the beach, Jack said. At Jamie and Harry's confused expressions, he added, What? Just because I'm a winter spirit doesn't mean I can't go to the beach. Besides, I love freezing the waves. As the boys flew away, Harry relaxed happily, listening to Jamie and Jack's playful banter. Yes, he still couldn't wait until he went to the Weasleys. But until then he had Jamie and his invisible friend. Hooray, and that's the end of Invisible Friend. My first fanfiction is now complete. Thank you everyone who followed my story and kept encouraging me to keep writing through his or her reviews. Now I remember someone asking whether I would have sequels for the rest of the Harry Potter series, and I'm sorry to tell you I won't. I have a long list of story ideas I want to work on, and frankly I'm not bothered to continue this crossover with the rest of the Harry Potter series. But if anyone would like to, they can, as long as you PM me beforehand and also acknowledge me. Thanks again, and I'll hopefully be writing again soon when I've come back from overseas and have the time. My next planned story is a short Teen Titans and Avatar: The Last Airbender crossover story called A New Power, A New Friend.